the board without going through a film agent, as was the case before. Marcos will be articulating that a lot more during the plenary. Lastly, as a regulatory agency, KFCB believes that through the Cafil program, creatives across Kenya will be able to harness their talent and creativity to create works that not only entertain, but also educate, inspire audiences, both locally, internationally. We therefore look forward to engaging with you today on how we can collaborate to spur the growth of Kenya's arts and film sector. Indeed, as I finish, I think all of you know how most of us enjoy watching Nollywood, a lot of movies from Nigeria. And if we look at the quality and the content that they create, I think as Kenyans, we are sure, and I believe that being in this industry, I believe that Kenyans are more creative than what we see from Nollywood. So why are we not making as much money as Nollywood is making? Why are we not as vibrant as the creatives in Nollywood? So we've come here so that we tell you that there is space to be vibrant. We are giving you a platform, and any issues that you think are stopping you from being as vibrant as you should be, raise it with us and we'll tackle it. I do not see why there is no Kirinyaga wood that when we return here next year, we'll have a couple of you doing very well. And indeed, I'd like to challenge you next time when I'm giving this statistic of the movies that are grossing very well in the box office, let me have at least some local ones from Kirinyaga. With that, ladies and gentlemen, asanteni sana, and we declare together the Cafil program for Kirinyaga open. Thank you very much. Brian.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we
clarify that I had blessings from Madam Nelly and Miss Redemptor to refer to them as Miss for the purposes of this event. I don't know why. But they'll be able to explain later. Anyway, just to move forward because of time, the next presentation will be coming from Miss as well. Utajitetea mwenyewe. Miss Lois Shalara. Then after Miss Lois, we'll have Marcos Masiga, and then Miss Redemptor Mondi, in that order. Thank you. Karibu sana.
No, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go through the wasteland.
Good morning. Watu wa Kirinyaga mpo. I'm called Lois Shalaha. Hayo ni majina yangu ambayo nilipewa na wazazi wangu. But I'm called Lois Odhiambo by marriage. So yeah, Mrs. Okay, all applies. Thank you so much. So I'm going to take you through the mandate of the Kenya Film Classification Board. It's a very short presentation just to inform you the legislation that we are established under and what is expected of you under the law that we operate under. And just to start us off, as I've said, we are established under the Film and Stage Plays Act, Cap 222, but we also draw our mandate from the Constitution of Kenya. Some of the articles that we draw our mandate from are just highlighted there. We have Article 26, Article 11, Article 24, 33, 46, 53, just to mention but a few. There are other articles as well that are not mentioned here, but they're not as key. Maybe just to emphasize on Article 33, freedom of expression, Article 2, 33(2), whereby it gives exemption. You know, we all are free to express ourselves in whatever manner we want. And when it comes to media or any audiovisual content, that is where we come in as Kenya Film Classification Board. We ensure that that content that you are producing, exhibiting, or distributing does not or complies with Article 33(2), whereby that particular content is not propagating for violence, incitement for violence, propaganda for war, hate speech, and all that. So mainly we have to safeguard the Kenyan audiovisual consumers to ensure that such kind of content, they are not consuming it. Then just an overview of our mandate. If you look at Section 15 of the Film and Stage Plays Act, Section 15 gives us the mandate to regulate the creation, broadcasting, distribution, possession, and exhibition of film. So under creation, we ensure that the film agents, the film producers, they have to acquire a filming license from us before any film is produced. Do we have any film producers in the house? By show of hands. Any film producers in the house? None. Film agents? Maybe they're still on their way coming. And then under broadcasting, we ensure that any audiovisual content that is being exhibited on our TV station mainly, that particular content has been classified and they have been assigned the age appropriateness. And when I talk of the age appropriateness, I'm talking of the GEPG 1618. You can see from the what's this? From the band. And then we have, we regulate also distribution. Do we have anyone who runs video shops around? By show of hands? Video shops? Okay, I guess they're also on their way coming. But yes, so if you run any video shop or you distribute any film content to the public, in whatever format, I know the format of distribution of content is changing. Now people come with flash disk. We are getting away from the disc and all that. So we ensure that as a distributor, the content that you're distributing to the public, it has been classified by us. And also you as a distributor, you have been registered by Kenya Film Classification Board. Possession, mainly we restrict possession of any content that you have restricted, which is not suitable for any person in Kenya for viewing. And mainly within the lines that I've talked about, Article 33(2) of the Constitution. Exhibition, we ensure that video shows and the cinema theaters, that whatever they are exhibiting to the public, it has been assigned the correct age for that particular audience that they intend to exhibit the content to. Then these are just some of the functions that we undertake under the Kenya Film Classification Board. One, as I've already mentioned, we register and license film agents, local and foreign filmmakers, distributors, and exhibitors. And then we also classify film meant for public exhibition and distribution in the country. I'm not going into the details because my colleagues, Marcos and Redemptor, will take you through the process on how we register the film agents and film producers. My colleague Redemptor will go into details on how we arrive at the age appropriateness, how we arrive at the GEPG that I had mentioned earlier. And then we also monitor compliance. As a regulator, we have to ensure that the license you have been given, you're complying with the provisions of that particular license. Or if you have classified any particular film, that the age appropriateness that you have assigned to that particular film is what is being shown or exhibited on our whatever medium before the film starts running, so that as a parent or caregiver, you are well informed that this particular film is either appropriate for my children, for family viewing, or if I have to restrict certain age of members of my family, then you have to do that. And that is the main purpose as to why we examine a film. And then we also give consumer advice on content viewership. And by this, after we have classified, of course, as a parent or as a consumer of any audiovisual content, you are well informed on the age appropriateness of the film that you want to watch. So if you are in a forum where as a family all of you are there mixed up with children, would not want to watch a film that has been assigned the age rating of 18. Or if you have children, then you would not want to watch content that is not suitable for the children. Apart from just this, we also have programs like this one that we are undertaking currently, just to inform you on the importance of ensuring that you comply with certain regulations. We have other programs like Your What You Consume, just to inform you on the importance of ensuring that whatever you're consuming, it has some effects on you. And you have to be keen, or you have to know why we undertake such functions. We also prescribe and develop guidelines on film regulation in the country. We did last year some stakeholder engagements. We were in Embu, I think. We invited people to come and give their input. So we prescribe guidelines. Apart from guidelines, we also come up with the regulations just to regulate how the film industry should operate. So those are just some of the functions that we undertake. And then I'll come to the definition of film, which most of us have had a misinterpretation of the same. But when you look at our act, film is defined as it means a cinematographic film, recorded video cassette film, recorded video disc, or any recorded audio visual medium. So if you have any audiovisual content that you are distributing or exhibiting to the public, then it has to come to us. For us, first of all, as a film producer, you have to come and take the filming license from us. And if you intend to exhibit it, then you have to bring this particular content to us to examine it. It does not matter on which platform, for as long as it's audiovisual content, be it on social media platforms, be it VOD, OTTs, broadcasting stations. For as long as it's audiovisual, it falls under this particular definition. And then I've earlier asked if you're a filmmaker or a film producer or a film agent. Section 4 of our Act categorically restricts you from operating as a film agent or producing any film without acquiring a licensing film from us. So if you're a film producer, before you undertake those activities, then you have to come and get a filming license from us before you produce any film. If you are found with our monitoring team undertaking such activities without a license, then it's an offense. And then Section 12 also, mainly to exhibitors and distributors, you are required to ensure that that particular film has been examined by us and a certificate of approval has been issued before you exhibit or distribute this content. But you have exemption to this particular section. So if you intend, especially for academic institutions, if you intend to do any educational documentary that have been approved by KICD, previously KIE, then you are exempted from the provisions of requiring to get a license or bringing this particular content for classification. And then also, if you particular film that you're producing is intended for medical professions. So those are the two categories that are exempted from this particular section. And then certificate of approval, we ensure that once a film has been examined, the board may either approve for this particular film for public exhibition, approve subject to excision, or refuse to approve for public exhibition. Again, this one, I know most of you do not observe it, but upon examination of a poster, and when I talk of a poster, is any poster as a film producer or an agent, you intend to use it to advertise the film that you have produced to the public. That particular poster has to come to us also. we have to either approve it for public display, we'll approve it for public display subject to deletion or alteration, or refuse it for public display. This is very important because sometimes you might find that the posters that are being used to advertise certain film, it is misleading. The content on the poster, it is not what is in the film, or even the rating. When you look at the poster, it might look like mild. The film, the picture that are showing there, maybe they are meant for children. But when you go to watch that particular movie, then you find that it is an adult, or it's not appropriate for the age you thought it is. So that is why, as a film producer or as a film agent, if you intend to use any poster to advertise the film that you have produced, then you have to bring it together with the film that you have produced for us to examine it. And then Section 16 of our Act talks about the rating that we assign once the film has been examined. We have the general exhibition. I don't want to go into the details because my colleague Redemptor will take you through that. We have unsuitable for children under the age of 10, and then unsuitable for children under the age of 16, and then adults only. Those are the ratings that we have. We have another one that is not stated here where we restrict that particular film. If once we have examined it, we think that it is not suitable for distribution, exhibition to within the Kenyan jurisdiction. So again, if you look at Section 29 of our Act, it provides on appeal. If you're not satisfied with what the board has rated or any decision that has been made by the board, then you have the right to appeal. And our Act currently provides that you can appeal to the Cabinet Secretary. We are working on our legislation as well, just to mention, to ensure that we have an appeal mechanism, a proper one, with the current legislations that are coming up, whereby maybe we can have the tribunal to look into the issues. It is a faster way of dealing with it, because most of the time, once you have gone to the Cabinet Secretary, if you're not satisfied, you go to court. But if you go through the appeal, most of the time it gives the judgment that all of us are satisfied, because it is a tribunal where they're experts, it takes shorter time and all that. So we are working on that as well. And then penalties under Section 32, we have the penalties provided. Our Act provides that you shall be liable to a fine not exceeding 100,000 or imprisonment for a period of not more than 5 years. So if you do not comply with any provisions of our Act, this is the penalty that you'll be subjected to once you're taken to court. Apart from that, the court may order the confiscation and destruction of the film that you have produced, or revoke the filming license if already it has been issued to you, or certificate of approval. So those are just some of the few sections just to mention, but there are others, but these are key to this particular forum, just to inform you of what is expected of you in this particular film industry. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I would like to welcome my colleague, Marcos Masiga, to take you through the requirements of film licensing. Marcos,
Just before Marco starts presentation, kindly take time to scan the QR code that will be projected on the screen. It's a survey you're conducting. Respond to those questions so that it can be able to also give us feedback about what you do and how to handle the industry moving forward. Thank you so much. Marcos?
Thank you, Brian. I would like to find out a few things before we proceed. I would like some of you to just share with me probably the last local film that you've ever watched. And do we know any? The last film, Kenyan film that you've watched? Anyone? Kenyan films?
My name is Stanley. The last local film I watched was Nairobi Half-Life.
Hi guys, naitwa Dave. My last new film is Makosa Ni Yangu by Felix.
How many know Makosa Ni Yako? Makosa Ni Yako? It is one of the most recent films. And I'll tell you, it attracted more than 3,000 viewers in a cinema hall. Any other person? The last one? Those are two, Nairobi Half-Life and Makosa Ni Yako. From this end, the last movie you watched, Kenyan movie. You guys don't watch movies? Wanna see, it's actually worrying. Because now, as a filmmaker, if I was to invest in filming or creating films and I don't have an audience in Kenya, then I don't think it would be a viable idea. So our creatives in Kirinyaga do not appreciate our own content. Is that the case? Ama tunaochi tofauti, utaki kusema? We also have vernacular, films in vernacular. And if that is what you love, it's still our local content. So I think Lois has already said a set base or foundation for me to start or pick from, because she's talked of Section 4 of the Films and Stage Plays Act, and there's also Section 12 on distribution and exhibition. And those are the two issues I'm going to be tackling today. So I will first of all start with filming requirements in Kenya. My CEO has also mentioned that we redefined the role of film agents in Kenya. And so local filmmakers are not required to be facilitated by film agents or be registered as such for them to acquire licenses. But if you register as a film agent, then you're also able to facilitate the foreigner and acquire the licenses from the board. Alternatively, we require you to register as a local filmmaker free of charge, because registration of film agents attracts 12,000 shillings, which is an annual fee, and a certificate of approval will be issued thereof. So let's start with registration of filmmakers. What we're basically saying is that let's not be walking around claiming that we're just filmmakers. I know your work can identify you, but again, why can't you be identified by us? Because there are benefits that come with that. So we require you to register as a local filmmaker free of charge, and we'll issue you with an annual certificate of registration. And thereafter, you'll be able to apply for filming licenses. And we have the requirement that you also formalize your business. You can't be an individual and just decide that you want to undertake this, because it has so many disadvantages. So we encourage you to formalize your businesses, and that's why we'll only register locally registered or incorporated companies or entities, if you'd like to call them so. And there are a few requirements here. These are requirements that all of us have. The only thing probably you do not have are the first two requirements. We're looking at the certificate of registration. If you're an individual, you can still register your business, as a sole proprietorship business. If you are a group of creatives as a CBO, you can still register your group with the Register of Societies, and that certificate can be used to register with us as local filmmakers. So that shouldn't be a problem. And of course, for incorporated companies and also other businesses, we must have something that identifies the directors of the companies. It can be in the name of a CR12 or CR13 or their equivalent. All of us have a KRA PIN certificate, so you have that. You also provide it. And please let us know what your company is doing. Therefore, you'll be required to furnish us with a company profile. And of course, for the directors within the company, we need also your identification documents. It could be a passport, a valid passport, or your national ID card. Registration is done within 1 working day, and the service is available online. You do not need to visit our offices to be registered as a local filmmaker. That is pretty much a sample of the registration certificate, and I'd also spoken about registration of film agents. To start us off, we need to basically understand who an agent is and what they do. And film agents locally are local production companies that are registered with the board, and you've been basically allowed to undertake what is famously known as film fixing businesses or business. So a film agent will facilitate foreigners to acquire filming licenses from the board, but global practice calls for foreigners to be facilitated by local persons, and it's for convenience purposes, and they also help you comply with other filming regulations. And of course, there are other laws. For instance, if you're to film in Kenya using a drone, you must obey that. If you are to work in Kenya, you need to have a work permit. So the agent, which is a local film production company, should be able to facilitate you with this. And so, just like local filmmakers, we also register registered entities, registered or incorporated entities, which means you must formally establish a business and will require the certificate of business registration incorporation, the CR12 or CR13 or its equivalent, which identifies the directors behind the company. A valid tax compliance certificate. This is a bigger responsibility, especially for the film agent. You realize that local filmmakers do not require a tax compliance certificate to register with us. Instead, you only provide your KRA PIN certificate. And then you must have a website, because at the end of the day, the foreigner must be able to access your information, which can only be done through a website. And you should also describe to us what you are doing as a company in your company profile. We also want identification documents of the directors in the name of national ID cards and valid passports. For this particular kind of registration, it's also important that a film agent employs a qualified filmmaker or someone who is trained in filmmaking or aspects of filmmaking, because there's no way you will facilitate someone who understands his craft when you know nothing about it. So we need a technical person who is trained in filmmaking or aspects filmmaking, and their certificate should be provided. Of course, registration takes 1 working day, and the service is also available on our portal upon payment of 12,000 shillings annually. What I would like you to take note of is the fact that the reason we're issuing, for us to renew your certificate of registration, whether as a local filmmaker or a film agent, you must basically ensure that you meet or comply with the filming requirements in Kenya. And that is what I'll be looking at in the next section. So, as mentioned by our legal manager, anyone who is undertaking filming in Kenya for sale or distribution or basically exhibition to the public must acquire a filming license from the Kenya Film Classification Board. So this is a legal obligation to all of us who are filming. And she also defined the word film. Film is any recorded audiovisual content. So if you're covering a wedding for purposes of exhibiting or broadcasting it to the public, yeah, if you're doing your own, you're filming your own wedding, documenting it for personal consumption or for remembrance purposes, then you do not need a filming license. But the moment you take it to the public, you're taking it to the wedding show, then it basically means you have to acquire that license. If you're filming, if you're documenting any other thing, so there are adverts and all manner of things that you can create which fall within the definition of the word film. After you've acquired the license from the board, there's also the aspect of clearance or consent. You can't just walk to Abai Lodges and say, I have a license from the board and it's a government agency, so government has allowed me to film. This is personal property. It's private property. Even for public spaces where someone is taking care of or conserving, you need to ensure that you have consent. So the aspect of consent is very important, whether you're filming in public or private entities for filming. And you're giving all this information so that you don't encounter challenges. Our wish as a board is that once we facilitated you with a filming license, then you should be able to undertake your activities without any hindrances. So we have different requirements for different kinds of production. So if you're doing feature film, short film, TV series, web series, and docu-series, we have those requirements which are also available in the handbook. Synopsis, screenplay, shooting schedule, and what have you. For documentary, feature, corporate videos, music videos, testimonials, travelogues, and infomercials. We also have their requirements there. But more specifically, for advertisements or commercials, there's one document which is very crucial, and that is the treatment which you must provide. What you'll note is that you must actually understand what these documents mean and how to do them for you to be able to furnish us with such. So I'll encourage all of us to learn as much as possible how to develop these documents to avoid any inconveniences when you're applying for the filming licenses. Of course, this particular service, I must just say that all our services are automated. Yeah, so you can access this service also online on our portal, and the licenses will be issued within the timelines that I'll mention. So for anyone who is using a drone, when you're making your application for a filming license, there's a section where you'll be required to indicate whether you'll be doing night filming, day filming, or both on the application form, so that when my colleague Keegan, please take this one. When my colleague Keegan is processing your request, when my colleague Keegan is processing your request for a permit to fly a drone, then he'll be able to help you accordingly. So for timelines, if you're doing a feature film, TV series, web series, a docu-series, we'll process that within 48 hours. We're talking about 2 working days. But for any other short production, which is less than 40 minutes or 0 to 40 minutes, we will do that within 1 working day. And we believe that this is very convenient. Please, we work between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And so submit your application early and we'll be able to sort you out conveniently. For the fees, for documentaries, advertisement, and short films, we charge 5,000 shillings plus 1,000 daily filming fees. For instance, if you're filming a music video for 1 day, you'll pay 5,000 plus 1,000. So that is a total of 6,000 shillings. And for feature films, TV series, docu-series, web series, it's 15,000 shillings per season. If you look at your handbook, you realize that there's a formula there to help you understand. And of course, our portal also calculates the amount payable automatically once you provided the details that are required. That is a sample filming license. And with regard to Section 12 of the Films and Stage Plays Act, All distribution and exhibition businesses are required to acquire, thank you, all film distribution and exhibition businesses. In other words, if you are selling, a distributor is someone who is selling movies, and the exhibitor is someone who shows movies. Do we have people who show movies here? How many of us show movies? And how many of us sell movies? You are a distributor. Okay. So you're the one I'm addressing. So we're basically saying for you to run that business, you are required to acquire a filming license from the board. So that is the requirement there. So any person who sells, supplies, displays, exhibits, lets, or hires any film to members of the public. So you just look at yourself and the kind of business you're running, and you may actually fall within what is described there. So if you're involved in that kind of business or either of those businesses, then you're required to apply for a film distribution or exhibition license from the board. So I've just mentioned that distributors are people who sell, and they include video libraries, video shops, movie shops, vendors. You can sell movies in so many different ways. You can hawk them, so you're still a distributor. And for exhibitors, we're looking at cinema theaters. We're looking at video shows, video game consoles. Most of us know PlayStations, virtual reality hubs. So if you're running that kind of business, you still fall within that. And then those who are advertising, they're digital billboards, in most of our towns. And if you're involved in that, or even screening in public spaces, or you're having a mobile cinema of sorts, you ensure that you've also applied for that license. Of course, if you're an individual, we can still allow you to apply for that license. This is distribution and exhibition license. As an individual, just need to provide us with your ID and, of course, the other details that are there. They're also available in your handbook. If you're corporate, of course, we need the business registration documents in the name of a certificate of registration, the company's KRA PIN certificate, or an individual PIN certificate, depending on the kind of business you've registered. These services are still available online. You do not necessarily need to walk into our office. Nowadays, consultation can be done on phone. We're just trying to make things easy for you so that you could be in your shop operating and you want to renew a license. You don't need to close the shop for you to rush to our offices. The applicable fees for distributors, that is video game shops, movie shops, cinema distributors, we're looking at 3,000 shillings annually. But of course, you're also required to obtain classification labels. When I talk about classification labels, you basically seeing what is here, GE, PG, 16, and 18. This bears the rating, and you must affix on the DVDs that you're distributing for those who are running that business. And then for exhibitors, that is a cinema theaters, outdoor screens, digital billboards, mobile cinemas. We're talking of 10,000 shillings annually. And of course, per screen, virtual reality hubs is 10,000 per premises. Video shows, public service vehicles that are showing content are also part of exhibitors. So we are here to ensure that even those who are yet to get into the business and are interested, the rule of thumb is that you need to understand the requirements, understand the rule of the games before you get into that business, and we encourage you to explore such. So these ones, video shows, PSVs, video games, a restaurant that has decided to show movies, a bar that has decided to show movies to the public is also considered an exhibitor, and you'll be required to pay 2,000 shillings annually. The timelines, we are still doing that within 1 working day. Of course, upon receipt of a complete application. And Those are the classification labels I was talking about. And of course, my colleague Redemptor will be talking much about that. It is also worth mentioning that you can't just be distributing anything. If a movie has not been classified by the board, please don't exhibit or distribute it to the public. And there are also movies we've banned. I know most not banned, we've restricted. That is our language. But your language, mnaniambukiza hiyo language yenu, you always say the board has banned. But if the board bans movies, I need 1 or 2 people to tell me which are these movies that the board has banned, so that, and I'll specifically go to the distributor, because you could be distributing such a movie. Any movie that the board has banned?
Maybe porn movies.
Okay, porn. What else? Because we usually have a list and we make it known to the public.
Those maybe have abusive language.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, and especially for you and the rest of you who are distributing movies, a list of restricted films is available on our website, and you should always check for that so that you can avoid distributing what we've basically restricted, and it should not find itself in the public space. So that is how the license looks like. And ladies and gentlemen, I beg to end there and invite my colleague Redemptor to take over.
It's still morning. Good morning. So I'm going to take us through the process of classification. What is classification? Why we classify? That way you'll appreciate. My colleagues have talked about the ratings, the GE, the PG, the 16 and the 18. Once I take you through that, we'll appreciate how we come about the ratings. So basically, classification is the process of assigning rating to a film. And as we are told, the definition of films include TV programs, commercials, the short videos, anything that is audiovisual, that is film. And classification is the process of assigning rating to those films. And why do we assign rating to the films? We do that so that we, first and foremost, to protect children from inappropriate content. We all agree there are things that are suitable for children and there are things that are not suitable for children. So first and foremost is to protect the minors. And second is to give consumer advice. So as a consumer, you have a right to know what is this that I'm going to consume, what is this that I'm going to interact with. And number 3 is as a distributor or a content creator. So you want your content to be accepted in different platforms, or you have very many audience. So that's why we rate content. So before I begin, I'll just ask the media team to cue in the short trailer, and then we'll discuss it.
Atumia nĩ matuteithĩtie mũno kuma hau kabere.
Icio ciothe nĩ njamba citũ, no mere nĩ tũragĩrĩria wothe tũngĩhota gũteithĩrĩria.
Emotito, waiko kũngĩakoragwo.
Mamaitha, ũtikĩte gĩtũ-inĩ ũndũ ũyũ.
Nĩguo ũreciria baba.
Ngerete gũkani ũtigane na ndeto cia mũirĩtu no ndũ iguaga. Tamakania gũgũtonya ũgwati-inĩ. Kamũhari kau twathomaga gũthomithia tene. Mũirĩtu ũcio nĩ mwarĩ wa mũhunjia. Na arongoragia ngai cia nyakerũ. Wenda kũnjĩra atĩrĩ wa maitha. No akoye na ũgwati. Igua kĩrimũ. Ĩni nĩguo tũkuhĩrĩrie na tũmenye wega.
Gũtirĩ ũndũ ta ũcio gwĩka.
Ndũrĩ na ũma.
Tokorwo nĩ ũrenda rĩu ibuku rĩrĩ rĩrahũthĩka gũtũha hakiri.
Ndaikĩti kwenda kũigua ũhoro ũcio mauma nyũmba yakwa. Ũrĩ kĩrimũ. Ũraigua ndatũ arĩa marakurĩra wĩyathi. No nginya ũmũkane. Mbere ya mũingĩ kanitha-inĩ no mũrume hamwe na rũciaro rwake.
Ndũgakue ngoro. No nginya tũkagĩa wĩyathi. Nyakerũ no nginya agacoka kwao.
Thai. Thathaia thai.
Ukone kwao ukone kwao ukone kwao de temanie aja ora boya ae ukone guito ukone guito wenda wete mania wete manie
Awai. Nĩ mũĩ ũrĩa gũthiaga harĩa arĩa othe maraga na muma ũrutagwo Major wa maitha.
Once a mau mau, always a bloody mau mau.
Yeah, so that's the film. It's called Wamaitha. Most of I must say it was shot here in Kirinyaga County. It is not yet for distribution. The producers are still working on the modality for distribution. So when the modality for distributions come out, we'll let you know where you can find it. But as a board, we've already watched it because that is the job that we do. We classify films. We get the privilege of previewing the film before the public previews it for the reasons that I had mentioned earlier. See? Yeah, so for us to classify that films, there's things we call classification guidelines. So these are the guidelines that we use to assign rating to a film. And these guidelines are parameters, is what the board uses, is like a tool that the board uses to classify films. And these guidelines will have what we call thematic areas. So under thematic areas, we have violence and crime. We have sex, nudity, and obscenity, alcohol, drugs, and other harmful substances, horror and occult, religion and community, propaganda for war, incitement, violence, and hate speech. So at this juncture, I'll ask, from what we've seen, what are some of the thematic areas that you've identified in this trailer? Anyone? So was there violence? There was violence, and was there sex and nudity? Yes, there was a bit of sex and nudity. Was there alcohol and drugs? Okay, was there aspect of religion and community? Yes, there was the aspect of religion and community. And then there was also propaganda for war, incitement, violence, and hate speech. Was there aspect of incitement and hate speech? Yeah, so those are the things, these are the broadly things that we look at when you are viewing a film. And I would like to ask, from that trailer, how would you rate that film? Yeah? Would you show it to primary schools? I want us to raise our hands. Would you show it to a primary school audience? How many are saying no? Would you show it to a high school audience? University? Yes. So those are the things we look at when you are classifying a film. So we understand this. The film is a good film. The script writer, it's about Mau Mau. There has some historical facts in there, but then there's some fiction in there. The film basically is about Mau Mau, but they are looking at the contribution of women, and particularly this girl, Wamaitha, in the fight to liberate the nation. Okay, so under classifiable element, we have thematic areas. So under violence and crime, those are the things we look at. We look at violent behavior. We look at fighting, combat techniques, emotional and verbal abuse, dangerous and imitable behavior, gender-based violence, and gun violence. So from the trailer, we saw some form of violence. There also dangerous and imitable behavior. Who saw the clip where she was jumping from the... So such, for an adult, you can process that is a dangerous thing to do and not to do it. But for a child, they may not have the the logic to understand that whatever they are seeing, it's fiction, is not real, so that they do not copy it. Okay, sex and nudity. There was the depiction of animal genitalia, explicit sexual acts, vulgar language, and depiction of physical affection. Under alcohol, drugs, and other substance, these are the things that we look at. Does the film has use of illegal drugs? Are we talking about alcohol use? Are you talking about drugs over the counter? We're not saying that you cannot have a film with these elements, but we are just trying to look how they are presented in the film. And then we have horror and occult. Were there forms of horror and occult in the film? Aspect of occult in the trailer? A bit. And then we also have the under propaganda for, those are the things you're looking for. And then under religion and community, those are the elements that the board considers when applying a rating to a film. So after looking at all those, we do put them in a scale. And then you are looking, first and foremost, you are looking at the context. Whether classifiable element justified by the storyline of the theme. So we're looking at the context in which this film is produced. As I said, the context of this trailer is about the Mau Mau and the freedom for liberation of the country from the colonizers. But let me ask you, like that scene, for the sex scene at the river, was it really necessary to be there? Was it necessary to be there? It could have still, the director could have still cut it out, but they could have still tell the story, right? So we are looking at the context. So when you're looking at we are looking at the whole context of why that thing is there. So for that film, the board watched it and we looked at it wholesomely and we rated it 18. And some of the reason that we rated it 18 is like the scene at the river, because you're thinking, even if without that scene, the director could have still told the story. Another thing that we consider is the intensity. The intensity is the degree in which a theme or a classifiable element is presented in the film. So, for example, the sex scenes that we just see near the river, ilikuwa inapita too. It wasn't that intense. But then, because this is a trailer, we thought that it was a bit intense because it was almost explicit. So that is the intensity we are talking about. You see, you can have a sex scene in a film, but not really show as it. You can actually imply it. You can just suggest it. But then when it becomes pronounced, then that's the intensity we are talking about, like violence and crime. When you look at this film, there was a lot of violence also, and it was intense. There are some close shots. So, like for example, when I talk about violence, if I push you, that is a form of violence. If I shoot you, that's a form of violence. If I knife you, now that's a form of violence. Now the intensity now dictates how we are going to rate the film. So if the film was just people pushing and shoving, probably the film would have gotten a lower rating. But because there was intense violence, the film gets a higher rating. And then another thing we consider is the frequency. The frequency is the number of times an element or a theme appears in the film. So, for example, violence was very prominent in this film from the beginning to the end, and it's also because of the context of the film. We are talking about liberation. You cannot talk about liberation without even having form of violence. And then the tone and the mood. This is the atmosphere that is created by the filmmaker in the film, so that it creates. When you are watching this film, how did it make you feel? Did you feel exhilarated? Did it create suspense? Yes, it created suspense. You wanted to know what was going to happen. No, that's the tone and the mood that we are talking about. And then the overall theme of the content. So, for example, there are some films that the board has banned, as the word says. We say it's restricted, but the commonly used word is the board has banned. And most of the reason why the board bans a film is because of the theme, the overall message, that the film is communicating. So if your movie is promoting, glorifying, or justifying some of the things that we think are unacceptable in our society, that film will be banned. But then the things who determine what is acceptable or not acceptable, for us, we depend on the constitution, we depend on the legal provisions that are in the land. And that's how we make the decision to restrict or allow the film for public exhibition. All this comes to an impact. It considers the treatment of individual classifiable element, purpose, and tone of sequence, and how it might affect audience emotions. So I asked if this film will be appropriate to be shown to primary school kids, and you said no. Why did you say no? Most of us said no. Anyone? Anyone? Yes, thank you. At least one person.
Christine, I thought that they might think the violence is okay and they might bring it in their playtimes.
Yes, there's too much violence in the film, and as an adult, you can process that. You can think, okay, I'm watching a film. This is a historical fact. This is something that happened long time ago. But for a child may expose a child to that, and they come out of that place feeling very scared, right? They're feeling very scared. They don't want to go to sleep alone because of the things that they'll be exposed to. So that is the impact I'm talking about. How will the film make you feel? So this film is about Wamaitha. And Wamaitha is facing a lot of difficult, but then she's a very strong and courageous woman. So if you are a lady and you're watching that film, at the end of it, how will it make you feel? Will you feel inspired? Yes? You feel inspired, you'll feel you want to stand up for your rights. You feel like if Wamaitha can do it, I can also do it. So that's what we are talking about, impact. How will the film make you feel? Some films will make you feel emotional, some will make you feel happy. For adults, we expect you to be able to process those emotions and deal with them. But for kids, they might have a problem processing those emotions because they are still growing up. So we are more concerned with what impact will that film leave to adults. But also we are concerned with what impact that film will cause to the society. For example, the thematic area of propaganda for war, hate speech, and incitement. So if you are exposed to content always inciting you against a particular group, against a particular people, incitement, everyday propaganda for people may want to act on those emotions. So that's why the constitution says that you have the right to express yourself, but that right does not extend to propaganda for war, incitement, and hate speech. So after we've put all those things together, we arrive at this rating. A GE rating, whenever you see a GE rating, it means that the film is suitable for all viewers. Anyone can watch it, children, adults, everyone can watch it. For PG, we leave the decision to the parents. We allow the parents to make the decision for their children so that they can decide what their kids can watch. So my child and your child, they are two different children. So as a parent, you're the only one who know what your child can be able to process. And then 16, this is legally restrictive. It means that you cannot distribute this or exhibit this to children under the age of 16. And then 18 is for adults only. We are in the process of reviewing this guideline so that we have another guideline between PG and 16 so that we have PG 13. Yes, apart from Apart from the film, we also classify posters. Posters related to film, not any other posters. Any posters related to film, and these posters are either rated approved for public exhibition or not approved for public exhibition. And how to apply for classification? Everything is online. You go to that website and you'll be able to apply for classification process. Charges is 100 shillings per minute, though we're also reviewing these fees. Posters is 1,000 and commercial advertisement is 1,000. Yes, thank you.
So anyone who is not here and he would have wished to come, but you know him, you can as well update him that we are live on YouTube. Before we proceed, I would like to just put on standby a presentation from KCAA. But in the meantime, we can have Mr. Marcos, Mrs. Shalanga, and Miss Redemptor to come for a question and answer session. So should you have any question, kindly feel free to ask. We'll have maybe 5 minutes or so for that specific session before we proceed. Someone to distribute the mics, please. So out of the presentations that have been made, I know there must be some who have burning issues to seek redress. So feel free to ask. We can have at least one question per person. Proceed.
Okay, my name is John Kibe.
Kindly be standing so that everyone can see you and the cameras can pick you.
My name is John Kibe. On the stickers, the rating stickers, I have an issue with them right now, especially for us who are distributing movies. If you look at the evolution of when the stickers came, by that time we had those decks, and they would be would stick them on the decks, and then we came to DVDs. Right now, the last time I sold a disc, I cannot even remember the last time I sold a disc. Actually, those discs, we are using them now for decoration. We're not selling them. Yet, I'm supposed to pay for those stickers and then just store them. So I'm finding it, they're not applicable. The particular stickers, to be told that I have to pay for them, they're not applicable, because when a customer comes to a movie shop, if you're an adult, there's no way I can recommend you for Cocomelon, because I already know that is not within your rating. So when it comes to rating, where the kind of movies, when a customer comes to your shop, if she comes and tells you, I need movies for my children, you already know the kind of movies you can recommend. So I have an issue with the stickers, that we are forced to buy them and just store them. Yeah. So that is one issue I have.
Thank you. Any other question? There's someone on the right side.
Well, my name is Stanley, and I had a couple of questions. So I would request you just allow me to answer ask the questions and sit.
How
No
many are
explanation.
they?
4.
Make them brief.
Okay. One, I wanted to know whether or not you have guidelines on music visuals recording, whether you guide the artist on how to record their videos or not. Then on the same, if the musicians need to submit their videos to the board, for review before releasing them to public. That's before uploading them to their social media handles. Then I wanted to know how you ensure that PSV operators film the appropriate content, bearing in mind that the PSV vehicles have all people of all ages all together. And lastly, under horror and occult, I wanted to know how you draw the line between traditional worship and occultism, because most times these two things are associated, maybe out of ignorance or arrogance, or they are uh, taken to be like the same one and the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Anyone else? I think we can address those, and then if there is any other person who has a question, you can ask after they've responded to them.
I'll start with John. First of all, thanks so much. I must say that this is something we are taking as a challenge to ask from you, and we're basically looking at technology, and as a board, we have also to relook the environment and see if it's still viable, as in if the stickers can still be used at this point. So we'll take that as a recommendation that we'll look into. In the meantime, I would like to advise that you try exploring. You know, when I walk into a video shop, and I hope very soon I'll be able to see how you set up your video shop. In the video shops I've visited, I see posters. Yeah, you hang posters. But there are also instances where I'll just come and ask if you, for instance, I'll ask for the movies I can watch from your recommendation. So for the posters that you have, it would be good the moment I step foot in your shop, I'm able to tell that, look, this is Wamaitha and the rating is 18. Because there's no any other way unless I start asking you. So for the stickers that you currently have, would you kindly utilize them in that way as we consider the recommendation you've given us? Yeah? Yes. So that is a challenge you're giving to us, and we'll take it up as a recommendation. For the other gentleman, first of all, thanks for the questions. Those are very nice questions and concerns. Of course, the guidelines that we've just highlighted here apply. Remember when I defined the word film, I talked about recorded audiovisual content. So music videos are not an exception because they are still they're still audiovisual content. So it is good that you advise musicians to ensure that whenever the music video is being created or filmed, they obtain a filming license from the board. Equally, the same video is supposed to be submitted to the board for classification. Yeah. So all content that is meant for the public and is audiovisual in nature must meet filming and classification requirements before it's distributed to the public. The concern about PSVs, of course, you talked about how the board ensures that PSVs create appropriate content, but in this case, I think you meant show, right? Yeah, because that's what they do. They exhibit content. What we currently doing, because we've tried crackdowns on major roads in Kenya, but I think, of course, there are those who've complied, but I believe that as a board, and it's something that we're considering, we are considering working with the National Transport and Safety Authority, that's NTSA, because anyone who is in a circle and is violating the laws of the land should be able to to be taken action against. So I believe that it's work in progress. There are efforts we put there, but we also acknowledge they're not adequate. And that's why exploring working with NTSA would be the best option for us. Thank you.
Thank you. You had asked about how, when it comes to guidelines, how differentiate between horror and occult and traditional worship. It is true there can be a thin line between that, but then under our guidelines, we have elements that we have agreed on. So when it comes to traditional worship, we do not classify it under horror and occult. We classify it under religion and community. Kenya is a secular state. We have freedom of worship, and even those people who prefer to do African traditional worship, that kind of worship is recognized and protected by the constitution. So for us, horror and occult, basically we'll be looking at the depiction of magic, depiction of supernatural. But then in religion and community, we are just looking at how someone expresses themselves, how someone worships, and the kind of deities people associates with. So there's a different, there can be a thin line between that, but then with the classifiable elements and the guidelines, we are able to differentiate. So traditional African worship is not under horror and occult, is under religion and community. Thank you.
Yeah, I think Marcos had left out the question on whether we have guidelines on music, audiovisual. Maybe just to specifically state that we don't have specific guidelines for music, but as he has said, music is audiovisual content. So we use the guidelines that we have to classify the music, which is audiovisual. Just to offer that clarity. Thank you.
Any other question? Okay. There's someone with a question there.
Hello, I'm Alphas. So I was asking, why restrict a song after trending? For example, Mapangale after trending. So everyone knows the song already. Why restrict the song? Example of even Ethic. They had another song that was restricted. Why do so after the song has trended?
Hi everyone. My name is Hezron Macharia, and mine is just a question of personal interest. I just want to know, but okay. The question is, can you tell us more about the board, when it was formed and when it came to effect, and who sat down to make these regulations, and maybe their qualifications too, and knowledge in our content and things like that. Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Kinoti, and I have two questions. The first question is I have interacted with a poster from the Kenya Film Commission, and the poster was about mobile phone competition. That it's a film shot on a mobile phone. So my question is, which license are you supposed to acquire? And the other question is, we as young filmmakers, most of us are unable to afford such prices. You as the board, what steps have you come up with to help the filmmakers raise themselves? Because someone is a YouTuber and he has less than 1,000 subscribers, so he's earning no money from YouTube. How are you helping them? And do you have waivers? Thank you.
I'm Nelson, alas, Nashli, I'm a musician. So I was asking how
how do you get to, because at times musician, maybe you get someone maybe wants to sponsor you, but there are things that.
Could you speak up, please?
Yes,
Could
I'm
you
saying
speak up?
my concern is for musicians, you find like maybe there's a certain company wants to sponsor you, but there are things that you are not well aware about them, like royalties. How, as a musician, how do you get there to earn royalties? Maybe because some of us, even we just get some stories and hearsays that they are there, but you don't know how to get there. Yes.
Okay, we had another question from this gentleman with a cap. Before you go back, there is this question here.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Charles. I was concerned about the resale of music for those of us who resell or those who distribute movies. Is there an alliance between you and MSK, or the license that you give to us? Does it stand for both movies and resale of music? Okay, concerning the same, there is a board that is called Pavrisk. I'm not I'm not aware whether you know about it, but they have been demanding for payment of resale of music currently, and we had a grudge with them since we thought that the license that you give to us starts for both music and movies. So I wanted a clarification on the same.
All right, thank you. Though there is someone who will be making a presentation about copyright and other issues, but we'll look into that.
Good morning, I'm Kongwe, and I had a question. Well, you look at all of us, we can stand, we can do things with our hand, but back in our community, there are some people who have different abilities. That is, people who are not able to walk, maybe. How do you account for them in the program, right from the registration to the charges? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Uh, my name is John Jerry, film distributor. So my question is, I have paid for the KFCB license. So do I have do I have to pay any other license to the MCSK? Because some of the times they'll come and ask you, or people maybe claiming to be from the commission, that in the movies there are music. So do you have to pay any other license apart from the one that we pay, or it has been accommodated in the movies? So kindly respond to that. Thank you.
All right, I think we'll take those. So we can respond.
Thank you. I would like to respond to the first question where it was asking about the history of the. Am I audible? The history of the Kenyan Film Classification Board. So maybe just to state that our act, the Film and Stage Plays Act, was enacted in 1963, and that is how old the board is. Initially, we were called Kenya Film Censorship Board, and we were under the ministry. Our functions were being undertaken by a department in the ministry all the way from 1963 when the act was enacted, just to classify content. And maybe before I come to the current Kenya Film Classification Board, just to mention that classification of film is a worldwide practice. Each and every country has a regulatory body that classify content. And the main reason is so that their consumers are protected from content that are extreme, and also protection of our culture. There's a lot, protection of our children. Each and every country have a regulatory body that regulates the audiovisual content. So from 1963, the board was mainly called the Kenya Film Censorship Board, but we again walked away from the censorship. And in 2009, the Film and Stage Plays Act was amended, and the Kenya Film Classification Board was established. And the reason why it was established, so mainly just to ensure that first we are aligned with the practice, the current regulatory practices worldwide, and also just so that you are able to regulate the evolving technology and all that. You know, film keeps on changing in format and all that. So the Kenya Film Classification Board was established in 2009 to continue with the regulation of the audiovisual content through classification and issuing of the filming licenses. Thank you. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but yeah. So we also come up with as a body, we come up with the regulations to ensure that we are regulating audiovisual content in whatever format it comes up in. Currently, we have developed the self-classification regulations, whereby we'll allow the VODs and OTTs. We appreciate that the content on the online platform is huge, and we are not able as with the human capacity that we have. That's why we have the self-classification. So the board keeps on coming up with the regulations that will be able to ensure that we are able to classify content in whatever form it is. So in brief, that's the history of Kenya Film Classification Board. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you. You had, I'm going to address the question about why restrict a song while it has already trended. So these are content that are created outside the law. Not everyone acquires filming license. Not everyone submit their content for classification. But just because you bypassed the law, you created your content and then it is distributed out there, the board will just sit back and let it go on. No, we have mechanism of also restricting it, and that's why we work with the platforms to ensure that the content does not continue to be distributed. So yes, there are some people who have already been exposed, but we are preventing further exposure. So the reason that we restrict content basically is to protect the consumer, to protect the audiences. So there's a legal basis why the content is restricted, and as I said before, there are some things that we just bypass the board, but then when we get hold of them, then we have to take action. And most of the time it is the public who brings it to our attention, asking us to do something about it. Thank you.
Kinoti, you asked about the license you require, especially when you're creating films for the mobile film competition. You still need a filming license. There's no any other license. The filming license is meant for any content, any recorded audiovisual content that is meant for sale or distribution to the public. Remember, we are not regulating the gadget you are using. We are not regulating the platform that you basically distributing the content on, but the activity of creating the content. So if you're using a mobile phone, you're using a camera, I mean, all these are cameras, but in different forms. So you require a filming license from the board. Kinoti also sought to know whether the board has waivers. I would like to point out that the board is guided by law. How I wish we could grant the waivers. Unfortunately, the only waivers that we grant are those that are provided in the Act, and we issue what is called a gratis filming license to students. If we have students here who are doing communication or pursuing courses in film, we issue a gratis filming licenses through your university, your college, basically your institution. And it is for academic purposes. If you're doing a film for academic purposes or for purposes of fulfilling your requirements, then we'll issue what is called a gratis license. A gratis license is a filming license that you don't pay for, so the institution should be able to obtain that license on behalf of the student through our portal. Elfa's question, Elfa's, I think I'll request that we defer that question on how a musician can access royalties. I believe my colleague Paul Kindo from the Kenya Copyright Board is better suited to respond to that, and he'll guide you accordingly. Then, Charles, you sought also to know whether once you've acquired the distribution license, the film exhibition distribution license from the board, whether that covers distribution of music. I remember we issue a license for the distribution of audiovisual content. Please take note of that. It's audiovisual. So when it comes to just music, that is a whole different thing. We are not mandated to issue licenses for the distribution of music that is audio without visuals. But if it's audiovisual, we'll issue the license. Just the same way you'll be required to acquire a business permit. Yeah? We are not saying once you've acquired a business permit, the county cannot tell you do not acquire any other license. But you need to look at the nature of your business. And it is always good to scan your environment, your business environment, to understand the requirements that are there. Probably if you're to distribute, the only person who will allow you to distribute content, audiovisual content, is KFCB, because that is legally mandated. It's a legally mandated institution to do that. But you also need to look at, are there other requirements pertaining to the business you're undertaking? So I can only speak about the license that is issued by the board. I think I'll ask Paul if you can also respond to the licenses, the question on the licenses that are issued by the CMOs. How does the board accommodate PWDs? I guess you are referring to this process. Yes. Of course, generally as a board, we accommodate people living with disabilities in so many different ways, from the time we are doing our recruitments, if even how we communicate through our website to ensure that the platform is also supporting people living with disabilities. But again, if it's with regard to this whole process of registration, I believe that is a challenge we are taking, and a recommendation for us to do it better when we are mobilizing participants for this particular event. I think John also sought to know whether a film distributor has to pay for other licenses. I believe the same question is related to what Charles had asked, and I believe I've already responded to that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Maybe Paul, just so that we don't lose traction of the questioning, could you kindly respond to the royalties issue before you go to your presentation? Because I believe if we leave it, you might lose traction. Oh, I mean, you heard?
Thank you. So I know I'll talk about collective management organizations later, but in terms of royalties, these organizations, the collective management organizations, are organizations which are created by right holders. So what usually happens is that these right holders, these organizations collect license fees. They license users of copyright works. These right holders have specific rights, such as public performance rights. So when you intend to publicly perform somebody's work, copyright work, could be music or literary work or whichever work, you need a license from a collective management organization. You'll notice that I'm not specifically saying which one. And I'll say that I'll say why probably shortly. But these are organizations who license the use of members' works. So, for example, if you have you are a distributor, or you have a video shop where you are selling copyright work. And remember, copyright works is not limited to music. It goes all the way to audiovisual works, including music. Any film or any audiovisual work that is displayed, you need to pay a license to the collective management organizations. These are private entities who are regulated and licensed by the Kenya Copyright Board. So I'll be speaking from the aspect of the Kenya Copyright Board. We license these organizations, and I've heard you mentioning some, MCSK, Pavrisk, and the like. So for this year, we did call for invitations for organizations that wanted to manage those rights as CMOs. So we had about 5 applicants who applied. We issued a license to Pavrisk. So Pavrisk is the one that was issued with a license to collect royalties on behalf of right holders. But again, there are litigations that are ongoing. So as we speak, because of the litigation, there is no CMO that should actually be collecting royalties when this litigation is actually going on. Though I'll speak more about that when I'll be talking about CMOs.
All right, thank you so much. After that, I think we can have a seat. Let's clap for them as they take their seats. Now, the next presenter is Captain Francis Keegan. He's a pilot by training and profession. He's also in charge of the unmanned aircraft systems, prominently known as drones. Let's put our hands together as we welcome Keegan.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you have heard, my name is Francis. Today, I'll be taking you through the requirements for use of a drone in Kenya. So before I continue, by show of hands, who has come across dealing with Kenya Civil Aviation Authority? Just by show of hands. Okay, by show of hands, who have seen a drone? Very good. By show of hands, how many of you know that drones are regulated? Okay, that is good. So today I'll be taking you through to show you why drones should be regulated. Why KCA? Why is it the one that are supposed to regulate drones? It is very simple. The responsibility of Kenya Civil Aviation Authority is to oversee and regulate all aircrafts. When we say an aircraft, we have manned aircraft, which include helicopters, planes, and then we have unmanned aircraft, which is now the drones. The drones is a new technology that is getting popularity very fast. And I can say, you people as content creators, this is one of the equipment that you can use to enhance your creativity, but you need to do it legally. Even farmers, I see we have big farms here doing rice planting. This is one of the equipments that can be harnessed and it can improve productivity because you can use it for spraying, you can spray using fertilizer, pesticides, and you can avoid people going into the water. So this is one of the equipments that you can really be used in this county to enhance productivity. So KCA was established under the Civil Aviation Act of 2002. However, drone regulations was approved in March 2020. This is about 4 years from the time it was established. And these regulations was established with 3 things in mind. One is safety, security, and privacy. They were to address those 3 issues. So some people might see a drone as a tool that is harmless. However, If it is misused, it can be very harmful. It can be used to do surveillance. It can be used to attach a payload that can be used to harm other people. So it's a good tool, however, it can also be misused. So basically, the regulations starts from this regulation addresses the drone from the time you import a drone. Before you import a drone, you must undergo what you call a vetting process. So most of the application is online, that is importation and registration. So for you to do importation, you have to have certain documentation. You have to provide us with your ID or passport, certificate of registration, KRA PIN, uh, uh, what we call valid police clearance certificate should not be more than 12 months. These are documents that we require for vetting. So when we receive the application as KCA, we'll review and forward it to Ministry of Defense. What is the work of Ministry of Defense? It's a contact ministry between Kenya Civil Aviation Authority and the other agencies doing the vetting. So these other agencies mainly is to vet like three things. They vet the equipment itself. Does the equipment capable of doing military work? It should be purely civilian work. Other entities will check at your backgrounds of the company, backgrounds of the individual. Another one will check the criminal record of individual or the people who are owning the company. So that is the work of that vetting process. And usually that vetting process takes a minimum of 1 month. This is a process that is purely outside Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. We just depend on them to give us the recommendation. So sometimes the citizens' complaints are this take too long, but remember vetting has numerous dynamics. They look at several issues. Some information might be missing. They request us, we request the client. By the time that process is complete, it has taken some time. So importation, as I've talked, you need to provide that information. And once the Ministry of Defense has vetted you and confirmed that you don't have any issue, then we'll issue as Kenya Civil Aviation Authority an import permit. That is when you are now permitted to bring a drone from wherever country to this country. And then once you bring that drone, we'll expect you to inform us on the date of arrival and point of entry, and we'll do what we call physical verification, just to confirm that the drone that you applied is the one that you have come in with. After that, you are supposed to do the registration. You're supposed to do the registration of that drone, and most of the time, once we have verified the drone, confirm all the information, and the make and the model of the drone is the correct one, then you go ahead with the registration. And the registration process is still online. Most of the information, you will find it in our booklet and also in Kenya Civil Aviation website. So these are just the requirements for you to do the importation. As I've said, for both company and individual, I've just stated, these are what you require to have. So there is what we call operation authorization. Once you have brought in your drone, you have registered, you now want to operate. I want you as content creators to pay attention to this. Registration is not approval to operate. Importation is not approval to operate. Before you operate a drone, you must meet about 5 requirements. You must have imported your drone legally, registered your drone. We also require you to insure your drone at least third-party liability. Before you operate that drone, you are supposed to apply. It's an online process for what we call daily operation authorization. And then you also, before KC approve your operation authorization for that specific day, they'll require also certain information. Example, If today we are supposed to fly a drone here, what we expect you to provide us with is that you'll provide us a copy of your registration certificate, you'll provide us a copy of your license. You must be trained and you must have what we call a remote pilot license. Most of this training organization is in our website. We have listed all the training organizations that have been approved to train. You cannot tell me that you can train, you say you have trained on YouTube and you can fly. Yes, you can train on YouTube, but for us, we require you to train and have a remote pilot license. And the major reason why people train is for you to be able to understand that the airspace is a highly regulated entity. We have a lot of activity happening within our airspace. We want you to understand the issues about privacy. When you are flying your drone, you are collecting that information. You should be aware that that information can only be used for specific reasons. We also want you to understand the dangers that comes with this drone. You can fly this drone and decide to malfunction and flies into power lines. It can cause serious fires. It can infringe people's privacy. So these are the reasons why when you go to this training organization, you'll be told and you'll be able to understand the airspace very well. So when you'll be operating at any time, you'll be able to understand what you are doing. So another thing that I've said, you need your drone to be registered. You need an RPL for you to fly, and then authorization. You need the consent of the location that you are going to fly. If you are going to be doing a function in a wedding, we require that church or that place to provide us with a letter of no objection that this activity is going to happen and they are going to use drones. I also want to make it very clear that there is no drone that is exempted from this regulation, including the ones that you usually see in weddings, in funerals, or any social events. All of them needs to comply with these requirements. So these are the requirements for commercial operation. For you to be able to do commercial operation, which most of the time is you content creators. You want to use the drone to collect information for your creativity, and after creativity, you expect to use that information to make some money. So that qualifies as a commercial operation because at the end of the day, you are going to make something out of it. Remember, we as KCA will try as much as possible, and it is our responsibility to facilitate you to comply. However, if you decide not to comply, the laws also has provision for that. Now that shifts from non-compliance to an offense. Now, if a policeman arrests you, then you'll have committed a crime. And I can tell you that the rules or the penalties that governs drone usage in Kenya is very, very punitive. It is between 1 million, they say not more than 1 million, or 1 year in prison, or 2 million, or 2 years in prison, or both, on each count. Remember, you can be accused for no import permit, no registration, no insurance cover, no authorization, and flying close to people. Those are about 6 counts. And if you calculate that between not more than 1 million, not more than 2 million, 1 year, 2 years, or both, you can see you can end up paying even between 6 to 12 million, which is not necessary. Your drone. So for commercial operation, it's a different process by itself. is a process that we call 5-phase certification process. It involves what we call pre-application meeting, formal application, document evaluation, site inspection and demonstration, and certification phase. So that is an entire different kind of process by itself. So another thing you should understand is we don't allow tourists to come into the country and operate drone for private or recreational purposes. But if it is for commercial or research, who approved commercial operators who will assist them to do the application and also do the supervision for Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. So that is all about drone usage. My advice today is it is very good technology. However, I'll advise you to ensure that you comply with all the requirements before you fly a drone. That is my message for today.
Any questions to the captain? We have a hand back there.
So, good afternoon. My name is Brian Monene. And according to what the captain said, it's as if it's close to we, the beginners or the startups, can't operate some drones since the cheapest drone, commercial drone, is around 250,000. The training is around 150,000. The license is around 75,000. And you have to communicate before you fly the drone. So for us, say it's a wedding, and you may be charging 15,000 or 10,000 for 2 hours. So you'll have to. The money will be used by probably the races and everything. So that's my concern. Consider us who are startups. Thank you.
Another question? I think, Captain, you can handle that as we wait for another.
Thank you for your question. I do agree the charges that they are being charged for training is quite expensive. However, as authority, we have very little input to control the prices. What we do as authority is we approved the training organization, and the training organization will decide on the pricing. I can tell you, we started when it was around 2 schools, and we thought when we increase the number of schools, it will create in business what we call demand and supply. However, we have now close to about 16, 17 training organizations, but the price has remained stagnant. I think what has happened is that the price has gone in line with the demand. So that is something we can have control over it. However, you have said the license is 70,000 shillings. The cost of the drone would depend on what you want as an individual. It's just like a car. Depends on the make and the model that you want to have it. However, I can tell you that drones are currently tax exempted, meaning that the cost of that drone, if you buy it from outside, it will not be subject to any kind of drone. You only pay 250 shillings, which we call concession fee. So basically that drones arrive with zero tax. However, it is a requirement that it falls within what we call restricted items within KRA. So you need import permit before you bring the drone. What I'll advise you is that you as content creators, you might not have that privilege or that capacity to establish or to have what you call a remote air operator certificate, which I've just mentioned is a different process. However, you can always partner with the already approved entities who can put your drone in their what we call operational specification, and then they'll be the ones applying for your operation. What we charge as KCA is that for a day operation, we charge 2,500 shillings only. So, meaning if there will be any additional cost, it is the one being subjected by the commercial operator. So, nothing prevents you as content creators from this county, with even the support of your county government, to have, like, you can go into arrangement with other commercial operators so that they can shoulder you. It's just like a concept of the Matatu Association. You buy your matatu, you put it in a circle. So if you can have a commercial license as a county, then all your content creators can be applying through that commercial entity. So the only charge that KCA will require from you is 2,500 shillings. So I think that can be affordable. Even this 2,500, we still feel it's still high for commercial operators. We are going to review it in future and ensure that it is in line with what the industry is. Thank you.
Any other question? Thank you so much, Captain. Let's clap for him as he resumes his seat. For those who are dealing with foreign filmmakers in terms of facilitating them, we have Miss Purity Guantai from the Department of Immigration Services, who will elaborate their mandate in respect to the film and the creative sector. Karibu sana, Miss Guantai.
Good afternoon. As earlier introduced, my name is Purity Guantai from the Directorate of Immigration Services, and I'm here to state the mandate and the role of the Directorate as far as filming is concerned. So I'll go straight to the mandate. The Directorate. So we draw our mandate from the Constitution of Kenya, which was promulgated in 2010. We also have the KCIA, or Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Act of 2011, the KCIA regulations of 2012, then Kenya Citizens and Foreign Nationals Management Act of 2011, and we also draw a mandate from some legal framework or international legal instruments like Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations of 1961, Vienna Convention on Consular Relations 1963, 1951 Geneva Convention on the Refugee Status, 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That is basically where we draw our mandate from, or that is what leads us or guides us as we dispatch our mandate. So functions of the Directorate, one which is mostly known to a very good of us as Kenyans is issuing of passports and other travel documents. How many of us know any other document of travel or travel document apart from the passport? Anyone who knows any other travel document except the passport? And don't say your ID. Okay, regulating entry and exits from Kenya, that is from our borders, land borders, seaports and airports. We also have managing of foreign nationals. That is, we manage foreigners in the country. Those of course who are living here legally, and that is where I'm going to base my talk on. Then we have registering of Kenyan citizenship. When it comes to filming or working as a filmmaker in the country, you're likely to have a foreigner come here either as an investor or as a worker. And so we have work permits that we issue as mandated by the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Act of 2011, Section 40. And that is where we have work permits in classes like Class A, which is mining, Class B, Class C, D, F, G, as you can all see on your screens. And I will talk of Class D and Class D, because that is where a filmmaker or an agent is likely to fall or is likely to have interest in. So Class D is basically for employment. If you're going to bring in a foreigner to work in the film industry, you'll have to get them a work permit from the Directorate of Immigration. They cannot be here doing their work, whatever kind of work, illegally. They have to operate under the law. So Class D is for employment. And in a short while, we'll be seeing the requirements that we need to get a foreigner a work permit. Then we have Class F. F is different. Then G also is a work permit that an investor would need if they want to come and work in the country. Then you have Class I, K, and M. So let's go to requirements for a work permit. Requirements for a work permit, and now specifically because you are dealing with filming, we'll go to the requirements that one would need to get a work permit in the country. So you have duly filled Form 25. That is, it should be very well filled, signed, and stamped by the employer or by the institution head who is applying on behalf of the person who is coming to work here. As an employee, you cannot apply for a work permit for yourself. You have to come in under an employer who should lodge the application for you. Then the cover letter must be addressed to the Director General of Immigration Services, because that is the office that issues this document. Then the national passport of the country that you're coming from must be valid for not less than 6 months. Then you have photos, academic and professional certificates. That is for Class D. If you're coming in as an employee, you have to ascertain, you have to be sure, or you have to prove that you're coming in as a qualified personnel on that particular area that you're coming to work. Class D is Class G. If you're coming to invest, you must prove, or you must show proof that you have ability to take care or to carry out the business. And so the minimum capital that you should bring into the country is $100,000. You also have CR12. Then, of course, you have to be cleared by Kenya Film and KFCB, that is KFCB, Kenya Film Classification Board. They have to clear you for you to get a work permit if you're coming in as a foreigner who has interest in shooting a film, documentaries, and such like. Then you have an employer's tax compliance certificate. That is now for the entity or for the employer, the person or the organization that is offering you work. They have to have a tax compliance certificate. They also have to have a PIN. And then if you're a foreigner coming in from outside East Africa, you're going to have to pay an unrefundable fee of 20,000 shillings. Within East Africa, it is gratis, which means it is free, non-refundable fee. Then when you apply for a work permit, you expect two outcomes. It's either an approval or a rejection, or sometimes you may be called upon to bring some extra documents. If your application is okay, it goes through, you pay 1,000,000 shillings for 2 years or 500,000 shillings for 1 year. Okay, when you apply for a permit, the committee that sits can decide to give you less than the time that you applied for. For example, you may ask for 2 years, you're granted 1 year, or you may ask for 2 years and you're still given 2 years, which is okay. Then if your permit application is rejected, you have the right to appeal through the CS's office. And if the CS decides to uphold the committee's decision to reject your permit, then of course you leave the country because you cannot continue staying here illegally, or you can still go to High Court. So it is important to note that work permits are valid for 1 or 2 years, just like I've stated. You can be given 1 year or you can be given 2 years. Then it is also important to know that once you receive a notification of approval after you apply for the permit, you have 30 days to pay for the work permit. Otherwise, it becomes invalid. So upon approval, upon uh, expiry of your work permit after 1 or after 2 years, you can always apply for a renewal. And then as you renew for that is now for a second time, the employee who didn't have a tax compliance certificate in the beginning should now be able to produce a tax compliance certificate because they have already been staying in the country. Then the other document that a foreigner can get if they're interested in filming, and this is the most popular one amongst those who come to do filming in Kenya, is a Kenya special pass. And just like the name denotes, it's a special document that is given to a foreigner who has expressed interest to come and work or to do trade in the country or to do any other thing as long as it is within the law. We give a special pass for a short period of time, and maximum the first time you apply for a special pass, you get 3 months, and then you can still apply for a renewal for another maximum. For now, a final maximum 3 months, which makes it all a total of 6 months. So again, duly filled Form 32. It has to be duly filled and signed by the institution that is offering you employment. And then, of course, the passport has to be valid. If you've been staying in the country, you need to have valid immigration status and certificate of incorporation for the company. This also applies to the work permit. And then this one does not have a processing fee, but once you have your application has been approved, you pay $200 per month. So you can also get 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. That is for the first time. And then if you want to stay for a further 3 months, you apply for a renewal and it's going to be granted if, of course, you meet the requirements. That I have already stated, and that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Any question to the immigration? There's a question. There's a hand there. The mics.
Okay, good afternoon. Okay, my name is Kibaki or Paul. And my question was concerning the immigration. Out of those process, actually I've seen there is a very many process concerning the immigration, payment fee, monthly fee. So my first question is, how long will it take to document everything and you are allowed to maybe to migrate to another country? And also, my second question is that I have seen that this thing can take even 2 years, sindio? And in these 2 years, sometimes some policy changes. Like let's say in America, there is this time that Trump said that they don't need anyone from Africa. People should stay at their own place. So what if in those 2 years they have changed these policies and they have saying that no one should come to our country, and I have paid all this money. Let's say those thousands of money, millions of money. I have already paid it. So, what are the outcomes? Because I have already paid them, and the country has already changed the immigration policies. What about the last question is, concerning the work payment or the immigration payment, the nini. This thing you have seen that it is taking 2 years, 1 year. What if the work that I wanted to go, nikifika huko and nikifika huko nipate economic downtown, yani downtowns, ama nipate there's no job, what are the outcomes? Will you refund my money or what are, yeah. Yes.
Okay, next question. But I hope that is in relation to film industry, because when you speak about the Americans having to maybe deport foreigners, it is strange. But any other question before she proceeds to answer? Okay, Miss Purity.
Okay, let me answer from here. I'm trying to go back to functions. I don't know. Okay, as I answer your question, please pay attention. It is important to know that as the directorate, we deal with you as what capacity we have between you and Kenyan, or between a directorate and Kenyans. What is our function? The function we have as the directorate, or where you as a Kenyan is going to fall, is on issuing of passports and other travel documents. All right. Then what I have talked about a work permit is now for the foreigners who come to Kenya. As a Kenyan, we don't have any control of you or handling you once you leave our territory. But we are talking about managing foreign nationals. So the work permit that I've talked about is for for foreigners who are going to come into the country to seek employment here or to invest in the country. I hope I am clear. We are not talking about you going abroad. We are talking about foreigners coming to Kenya. I'm trying to simplify it completely so that you understand. So uhusiano wetu sisi kama uhamiaji na Wakenya ni kukupatia kibali cha kutravel ama kusafiri. Tunakupatia passport, tutakupatia interstate pass kama wewe ni foreigner. Kama wewe ni Mkenya tunakupatia passport. Alafu as a foreigner, we manage foreigners who are living here. That is where the work permit is coming in. And then if still the question that you had is about the time frame, there's a committee that sits to decide how much they give you as a foreigner, not as a Kenyan. You don't need a work permit from immigration to work in Kenya. We also don't issue work permits to Kenyans who want to go and live abroad. When you go to America or to any other country, when you get there, you abide by the laws of that country. I hope I'm clear.
Are you satisfied? Or you wanted her to intervene on people who are deported? Asante sana. All right, before we proceed to the next presentation, I would like to recognize the presence of Honorable Gishangi Bosco, the nominated member of County Assembly, representing youth in Kirinyaga County Assembly. I would like to give him a few minutes to speak about the programs that they have for the young people of Kirinyaga County. Honorable Gishangi Bosco, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you, the CEO, KFCB, and the youths. Good afternoon once again. Kwani mko na njaa? Sasa nyinyi majenzi mmetoka nyumbani mmechelewa, then mseme mko na njaa. One is to thank you. I want to thank you people for being here with us, the KFCB, because it's a very big opportunity for us as the youth of Kirinyaga. And for those who don't know me, I'm Honorable Gishangi Bosco. I'm the MCA nominated to represent you people, the youth, in the County Assembly of Kirinyaga. And I have 2 or 3 things that I would like to mention concerning the youths of Kirinyaga and the programs that we have been undertaking to make sure that you feel represented and part of the government that we have. One, for the first time, we have such a program for the people who are in the film industry. And first, we can have just clap for the KFCB. It's a good network because we only see contents on Facebook, TikTok, and we cannot be able even, some of us cannot be able even to give, to outline on the criteria that are being used so that you maybe have followers or to create the content themselves. But I'm very sure by today we'll have a lot of wisdom and knowledge to do these things. And as the invitation was done, I think we were very much clear on the agenda of today and make sure, apart from learning from the KFCB, it is also an opportunity to have a better network. Because I think Bwana CEO and the group from the KFCB, we have representation from all 21s in Kirinyaga. And it wasn't easy to make them come together, but I think through your effort, you have been able to bring them together. And I want to assure you that going forward, we are also going to be making a lot of consultations from you people, because Kirinyaga County is a county whereby we always wish to learn and to get involved in good things and learning of good things that come across with the importance and maybe our gain. As one, in the county government of Kirinyaga, we've come up with some programs. As you hear in our website, we have the Youth Empowerment Bill, which is which we have set around 60 million. And I hope you people have registered your youth groups, either as a CB or a social group. We've set aside money that you can borrow, and as a group you can be able to pay at 8%. So I expect you from here now, you're able to get to the CEC in charge of youth, so that you can be able to know. Maybe you have a group that you want to create a content or to do a movie. You can visit our offices so that we can give you an outline on how we are going to lend that money, and you can be able, as a group, to service your maybe production and maybe filming. And probably after you make profit, you can be able now to give us back our money. Then I would also request that we need to meet again the way we are, because there are better things for you. And now this is a beginning for us as the use of Kirinyaga. We start a network whereby, because you know that we are in a situation whereby we need in February, I think we will do some recruitments, and I think the only people we can involve are the use of Kirinyaga. Is that okay? Then I have a request to the KFCB. There are so many regulations that are entitled for you to make any film or a cinema or a movie. They are it has been coded with a lot of, it has been so regulated to a situation that these use are all hustlers, because our government, we started it as a hustle at the bottom up. So we need to know how the KFCB and maybe the person from the aviation, is it aviation? We need to be told whether that can be, that is bottom up, where are we going to start? Because Kirinyaga use are hustlers wa ukweli. Others are farmers in rice fields, coffee. Others are employed. So we need to come up with a criteria on how we can be able to help these use of ours, so that they can be able to have better films, better cinemas, better music production, because we only fetch our regulations from what has been set by the national government and the Senate. So since you are in the national government, I think what you can do is try and negotiate from that side, so that when it reaches to the county governments, we are able to give a better operational criteria to our people. Then you also need to devolve, AFCB should be devolved, because you find that in Nairobi, you have, is it a cinema in Nairobi, whereby I usually get online and see you people inviting youths, bloggers for training sessions. But how many youths in Kirinyaga can be able to get to Nairobi to learn about to make those contents? So I would request you plan more trainings and more seminars for these young people, so that they can be able to fetch the knowledge that you have and maybe the assistance that you have. So as I wind up, I want to say that I'm so grateful for these opportunities that you've given to our youths, and we are going to make sure we collaborate with your offices so that we can be able to help the Kirinyaga people. So thank you so much. May God bless you.
Thank you so much, Bwana MCA. We appreciate your contribution towards this process. Thank you. All right. The next presenter is Mrs. Natalie from the Kenya Wildlife Service. Hawa ndio watu wanafuga wanyama. Kama kuna mafisi ziko hapa, tafadhali jiandikishe na na Natalie. Karibu Natalie.
Thank you, Brian. But for clarity, atufugi tunalinda na kuhifadhi hawa wanyama wa pori. So as introduced, my name is Natalie Waithera. I work for Kenya Wildlife Service. I am a licensing officer, and I'm here to talk about filming and photography within KWS managed national parks and reserves. I know you're going to say in Kirinyaga you don't have a national park, but that is not to limit you. See, ko Nyeri County hapa we have 2 national parks, ndio? So I'll start by introducing KWS and telling you what we do. And KWS is a state corporation which is currently under the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. It was established through an act of parliament, which is the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act, now 2013. Our main role is to conserve and manage Kenya's wildlife on behalf of the Kenyan people. And we do this through various legislations. So in the Wildlife Conservation and Management Act, we have provisions and we have functions of the service, whereby one of them is granting permits and also monitoring the compliance of these permits. So what do you need if you want to film within a national park? So this requires an authority. And how do you go about getting this? So first of all, filming and photography within national parks is guided by the Films and Stage Plays Act, as well as the Wildlife Act. And there are provisions of uses of wildlife. And commercial photography and filming is classified as an unconsumptive wildlife user right. So how do you go about launching this or getting this authority? First, you need to apply for a filming authority through the eCitizen portal. Before September 2023, we used to receive applications manually, but now we are doing it through the eCitizen portal. So before you embark on any kind of filming within parks, you need to get this authority. We as a service have categorized filming in 2. So we have the standard, which we classify as those ones that are typical and routine and are very straightforward. For the special ones, they may require different permissions. They use different equipment such as the UASs and also involve driving off-road. So standard filming.
as you're applying through eCitizen, what is it that you're required to have? So you need to, first of all, attach your filming permit from KFCB. So you cannot conduct any filming without the KFCB filming license. Thereafter, you are required to upload a synopsis, which is a brief summary of your production. And the processing time is 3 working days. We also work between Monday and Friday. So it takes 3 working days for you to get the authority to film if it is a standard filming. Please take note of the percentage that is indicated there, which is 25%. I'll talk about it as I'm telling you about the rates of filming generally. So for standard filming, we said this is the kind of filming that perhaps requires special permissions or equipment. It is important to note that the standard requirements apply. So that means you'll still have to log on to eCitizen, you will need the KFCB permit, you'll need to provide the synopsis, so that now you can get the special permit depending on what you need. So if you're planning to drive off-road, you need to write a letter of request. This is written to the Directorate of Wildlife and Community Service. So with clear justifications as to why you need to drive off-road, because within our national parks, there are designated roads. So a consultation is done internally from that directorate together with the park warden so that they can know the prevailing park conditions. The processing of off-road permits takes about 5 working days. And there's also that 20% chargeable fees. Now, the other category is the use of UASs. UASs are unmanned aircraft systems, or drones, as we popularly refer them to as. So you'll need to upload the remote pilot license, the ROC, you need the certificate of registration for that drone, the drone insurance cover, an indemnity undertaking. And thereafter, after you have uploaded this and we've reviewed that application and approved, what you'll get from the system is a letter of no objection. So you need this letter of no objection to take back to KCAA, whereby once KCAA approves, then you'll be required to come back to your application on eCitizen and upload this authorization, so that finally you are able to get the filming authority covering the standard requirements, as well as an authority to use a drone within the national park. We also charge an additional 30% of all the total charges. So for underwater systems, because perhaps sometimes your production requires for you to film the wildlife that is within the rivers or oceans, what you need to do is to give us specifications of these underwater drones. You'll need to tell us how you plan to install and how to remove, and also the measures that you've put in place so that you don't disturb the wildlife that is there. There's also a chargeable fee of 30%. So we go to the fees. So if the crew is between 1 and 5 persons, we charge 8,000 per week or part thereof. What this means is that if you're planning to film for 2 days within the week, the same fees applies. If the crew is between 6 and 10, we charge 12,000 shillings for the permit, which is the same per week or part thereof. And if it exceeds the 11 and going beyond, we charge 20,000 shillings. Now, for the percentages, you see here we are saying it is important to note that the filming fees does not include the camping, the park entry fees, or any other service that is offered to the park. Because now this is done at the gate. When we are reviewing your application or issuing the filming authority, we may not know exactly how many people there are. So we don't deal with park entry. So for the percentages that we noted, say for example, if you're using a UAS, we said there is a 30% chargeable fees, which is of all the total charges. So if your crew is about 2 people or maybe 3, then you'll pay the park entry fees for the respective persons. You may use a vehicle, you'll pay for the vehicle. If your production requires for you to camp within the national park, you will also pay the camping fees. So we are saying that 30% is for the total, inclusive of the park entry, the vehicle fees, and any other fees that is going to be used within the park. These are our contact details. We are based at the headquarters. Should you require any further information, we have our emails there and our phone numbers. But mostly, I think you've seen the issuance of filming authorities that is done mostly online. So with that, I beg to end my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are.
Okay. Any question for the Kenya Wildlife Service? We have one there. The microphone. Okay. Let me just work there.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Natari, for that very good presentation. I am a filmmaker and I do both commercial and institutional films. I just wanted to ask, when I produce, for example, this next year, I may think of producing a school film for the drama, for the Kenya National Drama Festivals. I may think of producing something that touches on the World Drive. Do I also need to have those licenses, bearing in mind these are educational or institutions, and I'm also dealing with issues to do with the Ministry of Education? Is there any collaboration which may enable the students to enjoy the World Drive services without very expensive licenses, or how can I work within the limits of Ministry of Education? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Another question?
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Ms. Natalie. My name is Stanley, and my question is slightly handed, slightly simple. Who owns the forest between Kenya Forest Service and KWS? In that, if I pay this license for KWS to allow me to film, do I still need to pay another license to Kenya Forest Service for me to use the forest to film? Thank you.
Okay. My name is Kibaki. There's a question that I wanted to add. Maybe this question is out of concern ama haiwezi kuwa inatusaidia sana, but
Here we go.
I'm asking, I'm asking, some few months ago, the government said that there is a criteria that they use. This is at the OneDrive. What they count fish, and they use at least 16 billion to count fish in ocean and a film. I don't know which criteria was used. I don't know, like I wanted to know, like how can you like which criteria did you use to count these fish and to know how many fish are in the ocean? Because you say that 16 billion was used counting these fish. So I just wanted to know.
Thank you so much. I really doubt if she made a presentation on that. Any question? Any other question?
Hi, Trish here. My question was on photography. So, if you go to these reserves and the areas that are supposed to be KFCB limited to, are you supposed to pay like the same thing with the filming? And are the fees still the same as the ones for filming?
Thank you. Natalie, you can take those.
Yes. For the first question, which involves an institution and the ministry, I think this form of request, we'd also term it as special. So you could write to the Director General, just stating clearly what it is that you require. If you're doing it for a class project, or there is another form of production, but in line with that, then you can write that letter first so that you can be able to get a feedback. Because for this, it's not as straightforward. It may have dynamics, so it will fall under special. So I would urge you to perhaps just put it in writing, then you'd get a feedback on the way forward with that. The second question. First of all, KWS or KFS, we do not own these protected areas, we just manage. So I think you asked who owns, whether it's KFS or KWS. Stanley, was it the question? So, and whether you are required to pay either fees. So as when I started my presentation, I was saying I'm going to speak for those KWS managed national parks and reserves, because you see, with reserves, these ones are co-managed between KWS, but there are others that are fully managed by the county government, such as the Mara. And this perhaps would go hand in hand with Trisha's question. So for those ones that we manage as KWS, yes, you have to obtain that authority. And I don't think there's anyone else who's going to ask for money other than KWS. So after you've paid and obtained your filming authority to film in KWS managed national parks, then that is all you require. For photography, Tricia, I'll give an example. Like the Mara, they are fully autonomous. So if you're going to film or do any kind of production within that national reserves, then we don't come in. Now, for the question of counting fish, 16 billion. Well, I can't answer in terms of the criteria that was used, because this counting of fish or doing census in general is done by our, let me call it a sister institution, which is the WRTI. So it's mainly done by scientists, and so they know the criteria that they use in terms of counting. So maybe that would require further information. But as at now, today I was here to talk about the filming within the national parks.
All right, thank you so much, Natalie. When I go back home, I will remember Kibaki.
Yes.
Kibaki has been very instrumental in asking questions. He even wants us to intervene in people who are being deported from the US when Trump takes power. But before we proceed, there is a video or a trailer that will be played. It's called Makosa Ni Yangu. So let's take a few minutes, watch it, and then we can resume after that.
When life grabs you by the boob.
Nimba naye hata ukikaa mbaya takushika sawa.
You either turn the other one or get the hell out. I chose the latter.
Mami, hiyo kazi haiwezi.
Yaani kama kazi ambayo huwezi kufanya, kazi gani kile utakofanya wewe?
Nafisa.
Jojo.
I can't believe this is happening, Mama.
I'm serious.
Nafisa, because the grass is always green on the other side. Or is it?
Saint is 100% his father's son.
Saint's Kirinyaga. Tulikuwa tuna date naye for 3 months and it's a miracle that I'm alive. Hamid Afisa, she's dancing on the crocodile's mouth. Mwambie akimbie na akimbie mbali kabisa.
It's only a matter of time before he puts someone to the ground.
You and I. Join that day.
How do you assault a body?
Makosa yangu.
Let's appreciate that good job done by Philip Productions. Now, that is the work that is done by local production companies. And I think as Kirinyaga County, we should also be able to do much more of that. So that is why we're here to empower you, to impact you with information so that you can be able to also sail in the same boat as Phil's Productions. In the next presentation, we will have the representative from Kenya Copyright Board, Mr. Kaindo. Karibu sana. He's a lawyer and advocate of the High Court with over 10 years of experience in litigation. So let's put our hands together as we consume from his knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Makosa ni yangu. That film, I want you to pin that because that is what we are going to use as I do some descriptions of the rights that are in that particular film. So that is very timely. So my name is Paul Kaindo. I'm a chief legal counsel at the Kenya Copyright Board, and I'm sure you're asking who is the Kenya Copyright Board. The Kenya Copyright Board is a state corporation that is established under the Kenya Copyright Act number 12 of 2001. So section 1 is the one that establishes that board with the main mandate under section 5 of administering and enforcing copyright ad related rights. So that is the overall mandate. But when you go further to section 5, you'll find the functions that are listed there. And I'm not going to go through them specifically. But there is one which I want to mention, which is related to the question that was earlier asked, which I attempted to respond earlier. And that is on collective management organizations. So one of the functions that we do as Kenya Copyright Board is to license and supervise the activities of collective management organizations. What are collective management organizations? I'll jump ahead, but at the end of the presentation, you'll understand what I mean. Now, when you create a work, when you have created that work, that film you have created, Makosa Yangu, for example, there are different ways of commercializing that work. One is, I'm sure what Feel It does. They have a website, if I'm not wrong, where you have to buy a link, then they get you the link. That is direct licensing. You are the only person who can watch that, and probably it is even limited in terms of time. So that is one way, direct licensing. You can engage directly, for example, with YouTube. I'm sure some of you have what we call YouTube accounts. So that is direct licensing, and probably you commercialize. You are paid if your work is eligible for commercialization. There are specific other, there is another way which you can commercialize, but it is very difficult for you to commercialize individually. For example, there is a right you have once you have created that audiovisual work. Could be a musical work or could be a film. There are people who show those works without you knowing that they are watching. Like, for example, you'll find that there are some matatus that will play your music or will show you a film. You cannot be able to go to each of these matatus and wait and see whether they are going to show you a film. So what happens is right holders in copyright work come together as right holders, then they create an organization, a member organization, and they allow that organization to manage specific rights or all of their rights. The main rights they usually allow these organizations to manage are public performance rights, and we also have broadcast right, and we also have public, I've said public performance, public communication to the public at broadcast. Reason being, you cannot go to each of these broadcasting houses and wait to see whether your content will be played and ask them to pay a license fees. So these organizations will license and ensure and follow up in terms of enforcement. Once they collect that license fee, they distribute to the right holders. So these CMOs, collective management organization, license the use of members' works. These are the ones previously we have had MCSK, Music Copyright Society of Kenya, for authors and producers of music work. Authors of music work. Then we have CAMP. We had CAMP. Then we also had PavRisk. Now, previously it was PRISC. Now it is PavRisk for the same rights that are being managed by the Kenya Copyright Board. I did mention earlier the history, which I don't want to repeat, but we issued a license to PavRisk, which is supposed now to license the rights of their members to collect license fees and ideally distribute to members of that. So when you have, for example, a music shop or a video shop, you are supposed to get that public performance right. Then once that is paid, that money is supposed to go to the right holder. Of course, less administrative fees. Whether it gets to them is a different issue. And that is why, for instance, we haven't been able to renew the licenses for most of these CMOs. And there is litigation revolving around licensing, which I don't want to get into. So we leave it at that. But if you don't understand the issue of CMOs, please ask. So the other things we do, I think we are one of the few organizations that don't take money from you. You ask for a training, we'll do it for free. We don't license you guys. There is only one way we take money, and I'll show you. Very little money, though. So those are the functions of the board, and if this thing ikikwama mtu atanisaidia hapo as I talk, move forward. Yeah, it is not working, so you need to help me. Yeah. Okay, good. The other services that we offer, which are not specifically mentioned in the Copyright Act, when there is a dispute, we have realized that most of the right holders don't have the capacity to go to court or to hire lawyers. So we offer what we call alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, particularly mediation. So once you have a dispute with somebody, instead of going to court, you can always come to the Kenya Copyright, whatever kind of a dispute, as long as it involves a creative work, come to us. We'll assist you resolve that dispute for free. Yes, I said for free. We will not charge anything because we are, of course, intending to promote creatives. Legal advice, you can always call or write or even pop into our offices. We only have one office at the NHIF building. We'll give you the legal advice for free, whether as a group or as an individual. And you can always call us to where you are for us to be able to give that advice. I've been talking about copyright. What is copyright? Copyright is a branch of intellectual property. Intellectual property is, and I think there is a slide to that effect. It is a property just like any other. It protects the creations of the mind. And we have several. We have patents, trademarks, industrial designs, and the like. But specifically, copyright is separate from. There is intellectual property. We have industrial property, and copyright. Industrial property are what I've mentioned: patents, trademarks, industrial designs. They are managed by Kenya Industrial Property Institute. What may be of importance to you is probably trademarks. You have stage names you can actually protect. You heard the story of Bazoo by Willis Raburu. It was used by one of the telcos. He went to court and he was awarded a lot of money. So those trademarks or stage names that you have, you can trademark them. Unlike industrial property, you acquire copyright by creating. So once you create your work, you create your music, you create your film, you acquire those rights. So there are no formalities which you are supposed to undertake. Unlike industrial property, where you have to register, you acquire rights by registration. So it gives the authors of original works exclusive authority to use their rights. It offers that protection to prevent unlawful use or unauthorized use of your work, and we are going to see those works. Now, what are the works that qualify for protection? When you say copyright, what qualifies to be called a copyright work? I've seen people coming with inventions and saying that I want to copyright. I've created a unique machine. I want to copyright. You cannot copyright. Again, I've seen people saying that I have a book. I want to patent. You cannot patent these things you are seeing in that list. You can only copyright. We have literary works. Literary works includes computer programs. You have a computer programmer, you register, you protect your work as a copyright work. Remember, registration is not mandatory, but is important. Music works, we have artistic works like photographs, carvings, drawings, and the like. Dramatic works are choreographic works. The movements, there's unique movements that can actually be copyrighted. That was an addition in 2019. Audiovisual works such as films, sound recordings, and broadcast. Broadcast is different because it protects the signal. And the broadcast is actually a related right, because it cannot work without copyright. These are the things. You cannot broadcast something. You may have the signal, but you need literary works. You need another kind of work for you to be able to for that to be able to make sense. Of course, we get our mandate from the Constitution. Article 40 describes what is a property in the definition, and that is a right that is protected under the Constitution. It is a constitutional right. Then we have the Copyright Act, which is undergoing an overhaul as we speak. So you are invited to make comments, particularly on two areas: ISP liability or infringement online. There is a provision we want to amend to ensure that content put online can actually be protected. Then we have collective management organization provisions. We are looking into that. International treaties. The main one is the Berne Convention of 1886. Then we have the Beijing Treaty that protects performance of audiovisual works. Again, it was brought into, I think we ratified that sometimes in 2019. Now, under copyright, there are specific rights that you have as a right holder. Once you have created that work, you acquire rights which you have the exclusive right to manage or to decide how they are going to be used. For example, you have the reproduction right. You are the only person who can authorize reproduction of a work or license somebody else to do that. Distribution right. We have seen Philip here. They are the only persons who can distribute that work. Nobody else, unless with your permission. Distribution rights. Then we have public performance, the one that I've mentioned. Like, if, for example, if you want to play music, I'm not sure that these guys got the collective management licenses for public performances. A hotel, airlines, they also pay for public performances for audiovisual works which they have, which includes film. Public display, you have a photograph, you have a drawing, wherever you display it, there is a right to publicly display. It is only you. In a cinema hall, it is only you who can authorize the public display of that work which you have created. Then we have the right to create a derivative work. You have created a script. Remember, a script is a literary work. So once you have created that script, you are the only person who has the right to that, to reproduce or to do anything else, including derivative work. Creating a film out of that literary work is your right. So you can authorize that by licensing and making money of it, and including public performance right. Besides those rights which you can make money out of, then we have moral rights. These economic rights, you can transfer them either by licensing, either by sale, or by testamentary disposition. Testamentary disposition means if you die, then those rights will move to your dependents. And I think I should mention that when you protect copyright, your copyright is protected for 50 years after the end of the year in which the author dies. So you still continue to acquire those rights and you can transfer them. Then moral rights are personal in nature. They are these rights that cannot be taken from you by virtue of the fact that you created them. The right to attribution, the right to be acknowledged as the author of that of that work. The same goes to the right to use a synonym or to publish a work anonymously. That is a right that you have, which is a moral right. Right to integrity, that is the right to object to any distortion that is likely to affect your reputation. Right to false attribution, somebody being falsely attributed as the author of your work, you can object to that. We offer what we call a voluntary registration system. Notice the word voluntary. Copyright under the Berne Convention, which is an international treaty that governs copyright, specifically says that member states are not to impose formalities for protection of work. Whether you have registered your work or not, you ought to be given protection. However, there are specific benefits for registration. Like, for example, when there is a dispute, the court will always ask who owns the right. So if you have registered and you have the copyright registration certificate, automatically the court will say that you own that right. The registration is through that link. As we speak, when you talk about the fees, it's as little as that. So we are I think we are the only organization that don't take money from you, like I said. So 100 shillings or 500 shillings, as we speak, it has been waived for a particular period of time. So if you have a copyright work which you want to register, you can do that. Even if it is on your phone, you can enter into that, you create an account and register that work. That work must be fixed. Copyright does not protect an idea. It protects the expression of that idea. So if you have an idea, for example, you have seen that makosa yetu, there is a script, there is an idea behind it. So that idea is not what is protected. It is the way Phil it has expressed it, the way they have fixed it. You cannot copy the same way, but nothing prevents you from making a film with a similar script. You have seen a lot of movies based on a girl met a boy, they fell in love, they got married. There are so many stories about that because it is not the idea. Another example is M-Pesa. M-Pesa is a mobile money transfer platform. Airtel, they have their own. Banks, they have their own, because it's not the idea that is protected, it is the way they express. You cannot create something similar to M-Pesa. If you want a money mobile transfer platform, you can do that without copying. One of the fundamental and most important aspects of copyright is that it is a personal right, meaning that it is you to manage and to enforce and to monitor your work. So it is you to ensure that your work is used in accordance to the way you have authorized. So if it is not used, you take action. Section 35B provides for a procedure where your work is used online or in a platform without your permission. It provides for what we call a takedown procedure. Takedown procedure means that if your work is in a particular platform online and you haven't authorized, you can issue what we call a takedown notice. But first of all, you must have informed the person who has put that content up, ask them to pull it down. If they don't, then you issue what we call a takedown notice. If the platform does not have that procedure, most of the platforms have. YouTube, they have. So you can issue a takedown notice therein. Under the Kenyan law, of course, there are guidelines on what should actually be contained. It must be copied to the Kenya Copyright Board. So the ISP, Internet Service Provider, the platform, is required to bring it down within 48 business hours. So we are looking into that because business hours is a long time. Imagine like Makosa Niagu, it is going to feature on a particular date in December. If, for example, Phil realizes that there is somebody streaming illegally that content, they are supposed to bring it down within 48 business hours. 48 business hours are 4 days. The damage will already have been done. So we are looking at reducing that and providing for an administrative takedown procedure in our amendment. But the law provides for 48 hours. If they don't take it down, then you get what we call, you can seek for injunctive reliefs from the High Court. You can go to the High Court, apply to get an injunction preventing the ISP from the continued airing of that particular contact. We always advise the best film producers is that it is very easy for you to manage effectively directly. So you are able to license directly, but there are people who are not able to do that. So contracts are very important. Contracts are very important. So we always encourage creatives to ensure that they have contracts with anybody they engage in, including performers, including actors, including a person who allows you to use their music. Have contracts with them, providing for what rights are they granting, and to do what, and for how long. It's very important. If you don't have that, then you are going to face problems, because those are the complaints that we always receive. Somebody comes and say, tulifanya kitu na beshte yangu, sahi imetrade, but anilipi. The first thing we are going to ask you is, what did you agree? You have nothing in writing. Becomes very difficult, but we do try to mediate those particular issues. If you are entering into a contract with an organization who have probably a higher bargaining power than you do have, you can always seek our help. We are going to make you understand what exactly you are getting into, and we can also bring both parties on the table with a view of assisting them negotiate and agree into that contract. I was waiting for Brian to stand, but he has sat down. So I can continue by mentioning that these rights that you have, you can make money out of it. Oh, he is here. Thank you. My time is up, but I'll take questions. Thank you, Brian.
We move to the question and answer session. I know this is a very critical area, and everyone who is a creative will be interested to ask one or two questions. If you don't ask, I'll believe he has been very clear. Any question? 1. Any question?
Thank you.
2. Any question? 3. I think you've done a good job, so they are
Thank you.
satisfied. So for you to access or to watch that film that was played a few minutes ago, Makosa ni yangu, you can access through that link at a price of $250. Let's appreciate each other's creative works to grow the industry. So the next presentation is from the honorable member from Kenya Revenue Authority. He's not coming to tell you to pay tax now. He's just coming to tell you what incentives the Revenue Authority has for the creative sector. Karibu Leonard.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'll speak to you about issues to do with taxation. Remember that when we are dealing with creative sector, all of us are also in a profession that we are dealing with also business. We are also dealing with trade. And for me, when I'm standing here, I'm coming to explain to you what are other benefits, apart from paying taxes, what are other benefits that you can enjoy as a creative or anyone who is dealing with film. So KRA basically is responsible for collection of and accounting of tax revenue. So which basically our work majorly is to account for national, for anything to do with national government revenue. So we deal with only national government. So which means we collect over 95%. And that's the main responsibility. Anything else to do with tax policy, our ministry in charge, which is the National Treasury and Economic Planning, are responsible for our national tax policy issues. But for anything on collection and accounting of our taxes is what KRA deals with majorly. Now, when you are a creative, when you are in this sector, there are certain things you need to understand. That this sector also is similar to what we do. Remember, there's a person who is employed, there's a person who is also doing a business in a kiosk, there's a person who is also a teacher, there's a person who is doing a matatu industry. All of them earn what we call income. And income is what is taxable in Kenya. Any income you earn is what is taxable in Kenya. Because when we're dealing with creatives, we are also looking at everyone is creating income. Then you need to contribute to the national kitty, which is now what we deal with on taxation. It's any form of income. And anyone can be you can either be a resident in Kenya or a non-resident in Kenya. When you are a resident, all of us understand that you get a PIN automatically, whether in your school or when you attain 18 years, when you open a bank account, when you buy a car, you have to have a PIN. So those are important. Therefore, non-residents who are majorly, you'll find people who are non-Kenyans and they want to have a PIN. And that's the process now we undertake also together with the migration so that they can be able to enable them to have a PIN. But remember, when you're doing creative work, you can either earn income from distribution, you can tickets, you can sell your film, you can sell the rights to use that film or the music in that film, and many other things. And that's what we call income. And that's why these are examples of the income that will arise. One, you will have employees, or you are unemployed, you are employed in that company or entity. Then secondly, you can also offer your services as a consultant, which we call it independent contractors, and you will be paid. When you are paid because of your skills, which means now you are offering a service which you are paid as a consultant. And when you are paid as a consultant, then you earn certain income, which actually will be taxable, which the person paying you is supposed to withhold. Then there's something called royalties. I know you've spoken about it on issues to do with royalties. When you're talking about royalties, you're talking about exploitation of your rights, your intellectual property right, because you have the right yourself. Then you give it somebody to use it. You can give it to maybe the county, you can give it to a telecom or whoever to use that right, or to use your song. And then from there, they will pay you. When they pay you, that's what we deem it as. It's an income because you are earning because the right that you have, you are the only one who can allow that right to be exploited by somebody else, which means you sell that right, but you are not giving out the right, but you're selling and you are getting what you call consideration for that right. And you can also, you earn income from business. You are like any other business. If you are you've heard from the KFCB that you need to register as a company for you to have a certain film, for you even to give a film agent, to be a film agent, to be a film practitioner, you need to register. The moment you register, you can also be a sole proprietor, which means you are earning income as a business. You are similar to somebody who has a kiosk. You are similar to somebody who is doing a construction work, because all of us are contributing to the same. All of us share the same burden in terms of taxation, because taxation burden is shared fairly among each and every one of us. Then, what are the things you need to know? That for these incomes that you've seen here, there are certain obligations. If you are a person paying, for example, you are the person who has employed individuals, or you are employed professionals, then you realize that you must ensure that you do what you call PAYE, pay as you want. So which means you actually withhold the amount and remit to KRA by 9th of the following month. You realize the first 24,000 is taxed at 10%, which means the person who is earning less than 24% actually are removed by what you call a tax relief. All of us understand that there's what you call a tax relief at the end of the month, 2,400 shillings, which means if you are at 24,000, 10% of 24,000 gives you 2,400. That's what is removed by relief, which means anyone 24,000 actually does not pay taxes. But you pay taxes, but it's removed by what you call a tax relief. Then this corporation tax. At the end of the year, you are a company. Then you need to pay what you call corporation taxes. That's company taxes. At the end of it, that's your obligation as an entity. Then withholding tax comes in a form where you are an independent contractor, or if you've hired consultant services. When you've hired consultancy services as a film practitioner, and then the moment you are paying that person that has given you the consultancy services, the independent consultant services, then you must withhold. You must withhold at 5% and remit to KRA. That's similar to even when you're dealing with royalties. If you are a CMO and you are paying, probably you are paying the artists, for example. Then if you are a CMO and you're paying artists, or anyone who is doing something to do with film, and you are paying somebody else, then you need to withhold 5% and remit to KRA. And that's very clear, because that's your obligation as an entity. What are you required to do? Then there's what you call installment taxes. That's for basically for companies. Now for VAT, if you have a turnover that's exceeding 5 million, then you must register for VAT. If you are going to offer services in terms of filming, and it's in excess of 5 million turnover, which means you are producing a film that when you sell it, probably you are even selling it at 20-30 million, then you must register for VAT, because that's your turnover at the end of the year. It's in excess of 5 million, then you must register with for VAT, because that's one of the obligations that you must, because there are certain things you must also ensure. But you can also do voluntary registration. But I know for majorly for this one, you must ensure that you register for VAT in case your turnover is in excess of 5 million. Then as you continue with your business as a sole proprietor or a company, ensure that you make sure you take note of the timelines for filing, for paying taxes, and that's very critical. For PAYE, it's by 9th of the following month. For withholding taxes, within 5 working days. Then for anything to do with corporation tax, you make sure you look at your accounting period. Then there are issues to do with keeping of records as well. That's very important. You must keep your records so that when you come in for compliance purposes, we know that you are complying. Then there are certain tax incentives that also you enjoy as you undertake your business or as a sole proprietor. One is that we don't tax on all your expenditures. Remember that you use a lot of funds, use a lot of amounts for you to produce a certain film. So that's what you call expenses. So all the expenses that you actually use when you're producing that film is allowable deduction, which means it's part of what you need to net off from your total income. Then there are certain capital expenditures that the law allows, like filming equipment. If you acquire any filming equipment that has actually been licensed by the cabinet secretary responsible for filming, then you will enjoy what you call capital expenses. There is certain filming equipment that's actually prescribed by the Ministry of Film, responsible for filming. Then you will enjoy also another additional expense of 25% for every year until it's extorted 100%, which means it's 4 years. So you just deduct that expense because that's capital in nature, not recurrent in nature. And then if your company has not made any profits because maybe you're shooting a video, your video, you've not sold it, so it's very expensive and your costs has overshoot, which means you are actually on a loss, then you are not required to pay taxes, which means what I mean is that at the end of the year, you don't pay what you call corporation taxes. You actually carry your losses indefinitely. Then you can also enjoy exemption for those who are non-residents. This one majorly will not apply here, but for those who are actually inviting people from outside to come and do certain place or actors or managers of something, then you realize that when you're paying them, there's a requirement that you should not withhold on them because we want them to come in. We want them to bring a lot of money here. They can spend here 1 billion, but you can pay them for the acting, for a few of those things. Then for VAT, when you buy or you import, you can buy locally or you can import. When you buy locally or import anything, any material, any goods and services, or you enjoy any catering services like today, but for purposes of filming, then you will not be required to pay VAT. It's exempt from VAT. So it means but what you need to acquire first is what you call a prior approval by the Kenya Film Commission, not KFCB. There's what we call Kenya Film Commission. And that one goes to the National Treasury. Then the National Treasury now gives it to KRA, which is us. Then we can be able to implement at that point to ensure that you get that exemption from VAT. Then there are those who are interested. You provide your services. You want to export your services. There are DJs also who do in this sector. They want to go to Uganda and they are paid. When you export some of those services, actually they are zero rated. You don't pay VAT, but you pay at 0%, which means it gives you a leeway to actually claim refunds from VAT because you are exporting your services. You are performing that services in another country. You have a company in Kenya, but what you've been hired by a Tanzanian company in Tanzania to go and perform, then that's what we call an exportation of services. Then remember, you can also import equipments. When you're importing an equipment, then what is that you need to enlist. You need to get a customs clearance agent for purpose of clearing your equipment. You cannot go on your own. You can get an equipment, you can clear, and then it's cleared by a customs clearing agent. Then there are two forms of importation. You can either import it permanently or temporary. Temporary basically is where you don't want to acquire the equipment itself. You only just want to use it for a few months. Then the law allows that you can also do what you call temporary importation. But for purposes of temporary importation, there are certain things that needs to be done. Because I know there are those big companies that they want to use certain equipments, but we don't have it here in Kenya. But you can agree that you can do a temporary importation. This can be done within 12 months. Then you pay a certain 1% of that or the value of that equipment, or 30,000, whichever is less. Then these are the things that you will be required to actually provide for purposes of ensuring that you actually import that equipment temporary, just temporary for use within certain months probably, and then you're done. Then you can also export your equipment. You can also go with your equipment to shoot in a place that's outside Kenya. But what you are required here is basically you are actually exporting also this equipment temporarily. You are going to use it in another jurisdiction for a few months. So what is clearly here, you need to fill certain customs forms. But what is important is that you need to keep that form. The moment you've checked and say, I've actually exported my camera, I've actually exported the DJ equipments, I've actually exported my cameras and many other things. These are some of the things, then you need to keep that form, that export documents for purposes to ensure that when you're coming back, you are not charged VAT and even customs duties and many other things that you are required to pay by because of the law. Then, as my colleague talked about it in the morning, drones is a restricted equipment. You are not allowed to import unless you get an approval from KCAA. So the first thing that for you to import, you need to contact KCAA, apply, you get that permit. When you get that permit now, that's when you can start now coming to us so that you can be able to facilitate you to import a drone. Because a drone is a restricted equipment. And when you talk about restriction, it's part of what we call prohibition and restricted items that we are not allowed in law to import in Kenya. So you basically need to get an approval from them first, then you can be able to come to KRA for for purposes of allowing you to import. The moment you bring it to the airport or even port of Mombasa or any of our borders, then we will hold it there. We will not allow you to bring it into Kenya. So basically, which means you need to acquire first the KCA approval. Then from there, now you can be able to import a drone. So basically, when you talk about just taxes, understand that your business as a practitioner, your business as a film actor, or even a musician is that you will earn income at the end of the day. You are not different from any person who is employed like me. You're not different from somebody who is teaching in a certain school. You're not different. You're not different from somebody who is owning a kiosk. All of them are deemed income, and it's important that we continue to contribute to the economy in terms of the income. So that's basically what you need to know about what your taxes is all about and what your tax incentives that you are likely to enjoy the moment you are in this industry. For KRA, we are available everywhere. So tuko present. Kerugoya, Wapi, Huduma Center, you'll find us there. So, and most of our services are online. So in case there are any issues that may arise, then we are across the country. I think we are more in like 52 of the Huduma centers, and then we have like 41 tax service stations and many other places. So I think that ends my presentation. Thank you.
Maswali kwa wana ushuru. Any question for KRA? Wako na pesa. Wako sawa. Sasa tumpigie makofi. Okay.
Thank you very much for the good presentation. I heard you are from KRA. And mine is on the issues of persons with disability. So my question is, when it comes to tax exemptions, I would like to know more about it because it has not been declared so much to us what is supposed to be taxed on us, like the DSA. Are they taxable? Yes.
Okay. Thank you for your question. Does he still require to be assisted on the other side? Oh, okay. Thank you. As you maybe for the others, as you think about your question, so I want to answer the question by our colleague here who has talked about issues to do with BWDs. BWDs, actually, we have a regulation that was enacted or was published in 2010. And that regulation allows that if you are a person with disabilities, there are processes that you need to follow first for you to actually enjoy exemptions, because there are very many exemptions that is enjoyed by people with disabilities. So first, you need to have the certificate or approval from National Council with People with Disabilities. From there now, after acquiring that one now, there's what we call a vetting process that goes in where KRA is a member to ensure that they vet to ensure that you can be able to acquire a tax certificate. The moment you've acquired a tax certificate, which is valid for 5 years, then the total income of that person up to a maximum of 150,000 is not taxed. So if you have employment income of 150,000, then it means basically you don't pay taxes. If you have rental income of 200,000, we will only tax the 50,000. Like we now start like ground zero when you start from anything above 150,000, which means the first 150,000 we deduct from the total amount. If you earn 300,000 in a month, we say 150,000 you net off first, then you start taxing the 150,000. Then secondly, person with disabilities can import one vehicle, can be allowed to import at least one vehicle within, and then that's allowed. I think within 4 years, we cannot import any other vehicle. So there's a time period. You cannot have more than one vehicle at a certain period. So, and that's what the law allows. So they can enjoy purely, they don't pay customs duty when they're importing a vehicle. And for income taxes, 150,000. Anything above 150 is what we tax. But anything below 150,000, no, it's not taxed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other question? Kindly note that we have a QR code where you can scan and then answer the questions that will be provided. It's a survey. Thank you so much, Leonard. Let's clap for Leonard as he goes to take his seat. The QR code will give us feedback about how you deem the industry to be and what you like us to do better. And that helps in giving the country a policy direction to that effect. Now, before we proceed to the final presentation, I would like to recognize these members from Moya constituency, Gishugu constituency, Ndia constituency, and Kirinyaga constituency. I hope they are still in the tent. If they are, they can just wave to the crowd so that we recognize their presence. Maybe they've stepped out a bit. Okay. There is a facility at the head office in Nairobi where creatives exhibit their talent, they premiere their movies, and you're also allowed to make an application and come to exhibit your crafts, your creations. So there is a poem that was shot there that showcases how the facility is. So it can be played and then you can have a view of how it is. And you, whenever you have something that you like to premiere in Nairobi, you can always contact us and you can be allowed to utilize that space.
I always wanted to be a superhero. As a young boy, I admired their great strength and courage, how they stood up to the bad guys with arms akimbo, how they kept going even when some tried to discourage. I wanted to be that, to be a torch in my city, lighting up dark places and putting smiles on kids' faces. I wanted to do that, to fix every broken branch in family trees, enrich the society and protect it from villains. I wanted that. Over the past few months, life has tested us in every form and shape. It may have beaten us, but we never stayed down. We've come back from the impossible, from being abandoned and desolate, from confusion and fear. When all seemed lost, we found a way. When all odds counted us out, we stepped up. We walked through the furnace and came out refined like diamonds, like the true heroes we are, fighting for one cause, all for one and one for all, preserving today and fighting for a better tomorrow. The future isn't something you wait for, it's something you make. And at the Nairobi Film Center, formerly known as Nairobi Cinema, we creatives have a glorious future to create. This is more than just a place for entertainment, more than just a space for filmmakers and performing arts players to showcase talents. This is where we capture the African dream and tell stories that define our culture, where we inspire hope and bring dreams to life, where we reverse the wave of moral decay and promote positive social values. This is where we light up dark places and put smiles on kids' faces, where we fix broken branches in family trees and protect our society. This is where we continue the journey of protecting our children and creating safe spaces for them. This is where we become our own superheroes.
Okay. That is the facilities that we have in Nairobi. So whenever you are there and there's something being premiered there, feel free to pass by and see how it is, so that whenever you have a project that you want to premiere, you can also utilize that facility. Again, I repeat, let us scan the QR code and then answer the questions in the survey for us to be able to tailor the policy direction of the industry. Apart from that, I believe everyone has a smartphone. Kindly take a picture and go to X or Twitter. Hashtag ni Usani Safe for All. When you load that picture, you just indicate hashtag Usani Safe for All. We are trending on X so that people can know that Kirinyaga is also present. All right, as the team goes on to to display that hashtag, I would like to welcome our member from Office of Data Protection Commissioner to tell us about their mandate and how you can preserve your data and how you can also preserve other people's data so that you don't find yourself in unnecessary lawsuits. Karibu sana, Mr. Kangebe. The hashtag, just before he starts the presentation, take a picture of yourself in the hall with a person that you're standing next to or sitting next to, and then post it on X with that hashtag. Usan is safe for all. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Kwani mko njaa? Kirinyaga? Eh? The home of lice. I am the one who has been referred as Kangede Francis from the Office of Data Protection, and I'll be taking you through the data protection and how to make sure that your data is safe. And I'll also go through the mandate on what we do as the Office of the Data Protection Commission. So we'll go straight to the mandate. Our office was established in 2019. That's when the Act came into place through an Act of Parliament known as the Data Protection Act of 2019. We have several mandates. The first one is the regulating and processing of personal information or personal data. We also ensure that the processing is in line with the principles set out in the section 25 of the Act, that is the Data Protection Act. We also have establishment of legal mechanisms to protect personal data. We'll come to know about what is this personal data we are speaking about. It is not information, general information of maybe how many people attended this place. It is information on your personal, anything that can identify yourself. Then we also protect the privacy of individuals. That is also in the Constitution of Kenya. And also provide subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data under the Data Protection Act. So understanding data protection, we'll know who a data subject is, who a controller is, and who is a data processor. So on the first one, we have personal data. This is information that can identify you as an individual. Then we have the name, the address, the images. So as you make your films, that is personal data. As you collect, there was a form that was going aloud that you are signing. You are collecting your phone number, your ID number. All that is personal data. Then there is a data subject. That is a natural person who is subject of personal data. Then we have a data processor. This is a natural or legal person who processes personal data on behalf of the data controller. And also we have a controller. This is a person who determines the purpose of the processing of personal data. So if you are a film practitioner or a film producer, you automatically become a data controller. And also if you have given someone a job, maybe you have subcontracted someone, they become a data processor. There are also the principles that guide the Data Protection Act. That is the first one, you have the lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. You must meet one of the legal bases. It must be in a lawful manner and in a fair manner, and also in a transparent manner. So if when you are collecting personal data, people must give consent. There is consent as a legal basis of processing personal data. There is also the public interest. There is also legitimate interest. If you are in the performance of a contract, if there is a compliance with a legal obligation, and also for historical, statistical, journalistic, all scientific research. All these are explicitly defined in the handbook. They are all given the necessary definitions. Then we have data minimization. All filmmakers must ensure that information collected is not excessive, given the purpose of its collection. That means if you just need to identify yourself, you don't need to give your too much of the data. It should be only for the purpose. If it is just for identification, maybe your name might be sufficient and maybe your phone number, but maybe the ID number may not be sufficient. We also have purpose limitation. That is, data must not be processed in a manner that conflicts the original purpose. So for instance, there is that form that you signed that you have given consent to, that your photos can be taken. That is maybe only for recording purposes. But did you give the consent to share the photos? Yes? Did you give the consent to share the photos or to share the contact information? Yes? No. Sindio? Kwa hivyo, if they share that information, will they be in breach of your privacy rights? Sasa, because it is not for the original intended purpose. Maybe we collected for record purposes, but they are using it for another purpose. So should be only for that purpose. Then we have a storage limitation. These data relating to data subjects must be anonymized once it has served the purpose. If you use the information, if you collected information maybe in your filmmaking, you have to anonymize that data once it has served the purpose. And also we have the accuracy. Data handlers must ensure that information is up to date. If you change maybe your phone numbers, you change your ID number, or maybe umeenda uka-update jina yako, they have to make sure that the information is accurate. Then we have integrity and confidentiality. If you are a filmmaker, make sure that the information you collect, mostly you deal with the images, you need to hold that data in confidentiality. And also maybe your employees must have high integrity. We also have the obligation of the film practitioners or maybe the film producers. When handling personal data, you must register with the data commissioner as a data controller or a data processor. In this case, registration is mandatory. Sasa, if you are handling personal data, it doesn't matter what, but as long as you are processing personal data, maybe you are taking the names of persons, maybe you are operating an M-Pesa or a cyber cafe, maybe you are taking the information of your clients. Sasa, you must register with the data commissioner. Tutaona ni pesa ngapi, ni pesa kidogo sana. Then you have to safeguard the rights and freedoms of the data subjects. You have to safeguard the rights and freedoms of the data subjects. The rights under the Act, there's the right to be informed. You must inform your data subject when they come to your premises that you are collecting this data for this purpose and this other purpose. We also have the right to access personal data. If you have collected maybe the images, you can ask them that this is the information that I have. Then we have the right to object to processing if the data, it is an absolute right if it is for direct marketing. You also have number 3 to comply with the Act as you create your content for public or online consumption. And we also have adhere to the fundamental rights and freedoms of the data subjects. The registration requirements that are required, there is the certificate of incorporation, if it's an entity or a company, a duly filled and a declaration form of number of employees, safeguards that you have put in place, the categories of data processed, That is like the name, the images, the ID, the location. All that is personal data. So that is the categories of personal data processed, and also risks associated with collection and processing of the personal data. To register, it is online. It is in the eCitizen portal and also on our website. The link is dataportal.odpc.go.ke, and the process is very easy, not more than 15 minutes if you have all the documents. The registration cost we have for micro, small controllers or processors. These are controller with between 1 and 50 employees and an annual turnover of a maximum of 5 million. The registration is 4,000, that is once, and the renewal is 2,000 after every 2 years. We have the medium, that is the between 51 and 99 employees, and also an annual turnover of between 5 million and 50 million. So it is 16,000 and 9,000. We have large data controllers, that is more than 99 employees and above 50 million. That is 40,000 and 25,000 as the renewal fee. We also have public entities, that is regardless of number of employees, as long as it is offering government functions. That is 4,000 and the renewal is 2,000. We also have charities and religious, this offering religious functions, that is 4,000 and 2,000. So I'll come to the end. We have our offices at the Britam Towers. It is always open. We have the contacts there. You can always visit us. Thank you, and I'll welcome any questions.
Makofi kwa Office of Data Protection Commissioner. Okay. He has made a presentation about data protection, and I believe there must be some questions. So we have a minute to ask the questions. Mtu yote aliye na swali, I believe they have understood. Sawa sawa. Thank you so much, Kangebe. Makofi tena kwa Mr. Kangebe. All right. There are young leaders from Kirinyaga, Ndia, Gishugu, and Mwea that had identified earlier, although I think they were out, so they can just stand so that we can recognize them, or they can wave to the crowd. There is Joanne Goiden or Golden. There is Mr. Kirinyaga. That's Mr. and Mrs. Kirinyaga. And then there is His Excellency Kibaki. Where is that man? Thank you so much for creating time to be with us. That is for that team that we just recognized. So before we finish, we'll have a photo session on this podium. And then after the photo session, so I've informed that after the photo session that will be done here, participants will proceed for lunch. And then, of course, there is a facilitation that was supposed to be provided for everyone. That will be sent on the mobile phone number that you provided on the system during registration process. I think that's clear enough. Is it? So before we move to the last session to proceed and eat, I would like to invite Mrs. Redempta Amondi to come and give us a vote of thanks. Amondi, karibu.
Okay, first and foremost, we'd like to extend gratitude to the Almighty God for allowing us to gather at this place at such a time. We thank the board for facilitating this event, the board and the sports fund. I want to thank my colleagues who have planned, prepared, and even made the presentations. I want to thank our sisters agency, KWS, Kenya Revenue Authority, KEKOBO, Office of the Data Protection, Directorate of Immigration, and Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. I would like to thank the establishment of this place, Abai Spa Lodge, for allowing us to congregate in this place. I'm grateful to the event management team, the craft management. Thank you very much. And we're also grateful for the county government, for the representation of the county government. And last but not least, we are very grateful for you, the participants, for coming. If it weren't for you, this event will not have been successful. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Redemptor. I would also like to recognize, I think Redemptor had recognized them, Crafted PR. This is a team that has been helping us to organize these events and to beam the event live, to provide sound, screen, and all that. So tuwapigie makofi pia. All right. Before you go for your meals, you'll pick your meal cards at the registration desk. But for the staff, KFCB and Crafted PR, you'll pick. You'll go and meet Miss Beatrice behind the tent. She will explain. Now we would like to close with a word of prayer. And I nominate Kibaki to come and pray, or to nominate someone to come and pray. Kibaki, kuja utuombe.
Usio disamusi kemona kumasia kago wakuje tucheze na wakuje turuke na wakuje turushe.
Thank you very much for this chance ya kuombesha. Hata kama ndachanganya. Bora tumeomba na tumeshiba. So let's close our eyes and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this chapter. Thank you, Father, for the session, Father. We glorify your name. Thank you for the food that we're going to eat. Thank you for everything, Father. We thank you in Jesus' name.
Thank you so much, Kibaki. Kibaki is many things, including a pastor. All right. Now we can proceed to the front for the group photo. I know we are many, but tutapangwa so that at least kila mtu atoke, and we can have that as memories of Kirinyaga. Njooni mbele.
Na kuria tumite ne Jesu wari natwe na kuria tuthiite ne Jesu gututwara reke moke wakuje tucheze na wakuje turuke na wakuje turushe reke moke muriega mbitagwa disamusi rugendo runene rwambiririe ciakago kirie na kiambere mokete guka ando agikiero.
Due to the numbers, we will take photos in two groups. The first group will come take, and then the second one will follow a few minutes later.
Dagatige kithembe na susu atumane kimere na susu atumane kimere wakuje tucheze na wakuje turuke na wakuje turushe reke moke wakuje tucheze na wakuje
Kirinyaga, how are you?
wakuje turushe
Kirinyaga people, how are you? Creatives? Mko salama? So let's have from this table right here all the way to Mbele, please.
Then lunch is subject to be empty.
The subsequent table ambayo iko next to Dr. for the second group.
Nakuria tumite ne Jesu wari natwe nakuria tuthiite
So let's have this table as well. Joining us for the group photo. Yes. And the next table as well.
Nikiathe kinene mabici twĩ gũkũ eritu ambere athaka kũthakara na mũrĩo wa ũkĩ athuri a tene mũratina kwa wĩngĩ ĩmama ndũkunde nĩ njamba cia mbere tũtingĩkomeka ĩmwarĩ wa mami ndũketuine rũrũ kwĩvyũria gũtirĩ na rika tumĩte mbere tũkĩte kũrĩa rwĩmbo kwĩvyũria gũtirĩ na rika tumĩte mbere tũkĩte kũrĩa rwĩmbo
KFCB team, Hillary.